much does that envelope cost? 3 to 8 cents.
We're still missing a bunch of, at the request of.
The fact that you would know that scares me.
Because you know, you could have just called me instead of writing me a letter. I appreciate the letter, but
Trying to bring some professionalism to the
you know, I see. But you know, that's 8 cents we could use for school books or something. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 12th meeting of the Board of Selectmen Sewer Commissioners. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, 4 selectmen are present, as is Town Administrator Mr. Sullivan.
Okay, do we have any announcements this evening?
Yes, we have Wareham's Coffee Hour, a chance to have a coffee break and chat with interesting. Oh, there's a typo here. Guess it will be you, Mr. Chairman, this week.
I'm there.
The current chairman of the Board of Selectmen seeking re-election to a 3-year term, 9 a.m. Thursday, March 14th, 2013, room 225 in the Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass.
Bring lunch, because the last time I went, I was there 6 hours. It was very interesting.
God help these poor people, Mr. Chairman.
What else you got?
I don't have anything else tonight. Mr. Teitelbaum, do you have anything?
Just briefly, on this past Thursday, the YMCA had a brief kickoff dinner at 6 p.m. for its scholarship drive. On one of the scholarship teams, they set up teams and were supposed to, I guess, compete against each other to raise money. So I'll be, on a weekly basis going forward, I think I'll be pestering people to donate to this cause. It's very worthy. It assists families who don't have the resources themselves to pay for YMCA memberships, to get memberships and to exercise and get their kids off to the right start in life. And so I think it's important. Thank you.
Mr.
I'll repeat
Sullivan?
again from last week. Wareham Historical Society has an event on Monday the 18th, 7 o'clock at the Methodist Meeting Hall on Main Street, and that will be Irish Need Not Apply. It has to do with the history of the Irish in the United States. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
I just want to say that, you know, lately I've been starting to notice the signs going up around town. I saw the one for Jacob's Run. There was another walk. So if you have events that you have going on, if you could email the office or any one of us or Mr. Sullivan so that we can get your event on the town website, on the calendar there, so that people will know, people that go there and check the events calendar out. Because it's coming, we're getting into that time of the year again, and it would be good if we miss it here. At least it would be up on the website. That's all I have.
Okay. Next up is citizens' participation.
Anyone like to speak to the board this evening? Yes, ma'am. Go right to left. Two ma'ams. Okay. Oh, this is a group effort. Don't get me in trouble with the agenda, you know.
No, we'll try to keep this very brief.
Okey-dokey.
I'm Claire Smith. With me is Angela Dunham. We just want to give you an update on the Hurricane Sandy Coalition and where we are and what's been going on. As you know, we made a substantial trip down there with goods back in December, but we've continued to work on. We have managed to have a couple of Saturdays where we collected gift cards. There also were some monetary donations. I spoke with them today, and what they would like to have us do is to go to Lowe's and purchase gift cards with the money that we have. They are in the rebuild part of their efforts, where now they are beginning to go in and insulate homes and sheetrock. So having gift cards to Lowe's will enable them to buy sheetrock and tape and nails and that kind of thing. What they're doing as a neighborhood is taking one house at a time, and they get together and they all go and work on one house and move on to the next. So we will be going to Lowe's and purchasing a gift card and sending that down. As you know, we still have the coin banks that are going on around town and through the schools, and Through that effort, we sent the very first $500 check down last week with the Coint Bank. We have approximately 75 banks out. We'd like to hit 100, so if there are any businesses out there, maybe seasonal, that are just coming online that don't have a Coint Bank and would like one, they should get in touch with Sally Morrison, because it's become a very popular thing between businesses to compete.
Mr. Sullivan, do you have a coink in the office at Town Hall?
I am coinkless, and I'm feeling a lot.
I
very
know you're
jealous
coinkless,
about
but
that.
I asked you if you had a coink in the office there.
No, we don't.
Well,
I'd
maybe
love
we
to
should get one
Yeah.
in the office.
But we can make that happen for you, I'm sure.
The chief stood up. I thought he was going to take something out of his wallet and give it to you.
Well,
Chief, are
I'm
you
sure
making
if
a
he's,
donation there? Or?
around town, there are plenty of Coint banks, and they certainly can put their little donations in as they come across them. Guy and Rescue is having a fundraiser on May 18th. No, I'm sorry. I think it's sometime this month. They're having a casino night. If anyone wishes to sponsor a table or purchase tickets, even though you have no intention of driving to New York and attending, but in order for Wareham residents to show our support, we certainly can go online to Guy and Rescue's website and purchase tickets and support them in that way. You can go to guyandrescue.ticketbud.com. You click on tickets, and you can pay for your ticket through PayPal, or if you want to become a sponsor of a table, feel free to help out in any way that you can. What we would like to do next is our next project is to gather some very hardy people to go down on Saturday, April 6th, and maybe help with a little bit of sheetrocking or carrying in the sheetrocking or carrying the nails or whatever it is that we can do. We'd like to try to put together a little caravan. So if anybody is willing and able, we already have a few volunteers, and I would love to go down with a whole caravan of people and show our support by actually giving some of our time. The other big thing coming up is WCTV is sponsoring their auction on May 18th from 2 p.m. to midnight. It's going to be hosted by Bay Point, but sponsored in partnership with the Hurricane Sandy Coalition and the Donovan Schools. So we're asking people to take note of our efforts to collect auction items and donate for that. We understand that some members from Oakwood will be up here the day of the auction helping us live. It will be a great interaction between the communities, and they are all excited also to be coming to our summer celebration. They want to come up and party with us. So that's where we are with our efforts for the Hurricane Sandy Coalition.
Chief, do you have a coink at the police station?
What?
You have a coink? Well, you better see Mrs. Smith and get one. See?
We'll have to dress it in dress blues and a little
Yeah, you
police
can dress
hat.
him up. Dress him up as a. Put a suit on him and call him the chief. Chief Coink.
They're all dressed up and they all have names all around
Do
town.
we have
They're really
Do we
funny.
have a coink over at Mass Maritime? I'm just looking through the crowd here. There's plenty of people with smiles on their faces, but raise your hand and get a coink from Claire and
Well,
the
I don't have
committee.
them. Sally does, because it's done through Eastern Bank, and they actually do number them. They take great pains to know where they are. They take great pains when it's deposited. There's a little challenge on every month. If you go into Eastern Bank, you'll see the big sign that has who has collected the most. At the end of the month, there is a prize. So it's a real activity going on around town. So anybody that would like them,
It's a good competition
it's good
between the
company. You can
different
stop in at
the
Eastern
different
Bank and
grade
get one.
levels at the Mass Maritime Academy. I think
Right.
would be a great idea.
Great
There's two
idea.
gentlemen here smiling,
yeah, freshmen,
and someone in the
sophomore,
back
junior,
raising
yes,
raising her
seniors.
hand to volunteer to sponsor it. So I think
And
that would be
Coink
good.
has a Facebook page, so if you want to see some of the Coinks and how they're decorated and what adventures they're all having great adventures. Some partying a little more than others. Go to the Coink Facebook page, and you'll see the different Coinks on Facebook.
And what it is, just in case you wonder what we're talking about, there are these little banks that you can put out, and the collection is all for this group, who is supporting a support group in New York and New Jersey that were devastated by the storm, and all that money goes to them. I think it'd be a great contest between classes.
Oh, absolutely.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
can I also mention there's a Guyan Rescue Facebook page, which
Right.
is great to follow, and they're very upbeat. Yesterday they posted a bunch of pictures, rocked and an address. And at first I thought, wow, they went in and rocked that place. But no, they meant rocked. They sheetrocked
They
it.
sheetrocked.
And they started posting pictures. So you know, if you're on Facebook and you like those pages, you can.
Outstanding. Great work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next.
Dorothy
Howdy.
Heath, hi. Precinct 2, I have presented a petition to be part of the warrant for this April, and I'd like to request that we be put on the agenda to present the petition to the Selectmen next Tuesday so that we can get their vote to have it put on the warrant, please.
We are, I am getting those. We did a bunch a week ago Saturday, as you know, you weren't here. You weren't available. And
Well,
so,
I had just, I don't think my petition was even in there, or it had just gotten in, it wasn't in
oh,
in
because
time.
I had received note back that you were going to be out of town or something. And
Yeah,
so what
we
we're
were.
doing now is Mrs. Winslow sent me a list of those remaining, and we'll get those on the schedule and get back to you.
Okay, so because there are.
It'll be in the next couple weeks, yeah.
Okay, because there are other people who want to be here when I present.
Oh,
the
sure.
petition, so
Yeah,
I need
and
to
we'll
know.
we'll make sure that you know enough time. The
Okay.
19th, I'm moving stuff off of the 19th because that night we have three interviews that we have to do, and I don't know how long they're going to last. It's for town council, and it's going to be done here in public. So, you know, that could last an hour and a half or 2 hours. We're hoping to keep them short. Well, you know how lawyers are. So it'll be over the next couple of weeks when we have all those.
All right, well, as long as you
and
notify
Janet
me
will call you.
far enough in advance so I can notify the other
Oh,
people
sure,
who want
absolutely.
to participate. Thank you.
And thank you for doing that, by the way. Anybody else? Okay, next up,
Certificates, Mr. Chair.
Chief, Lieutenant.
Mr. Chairman, this actually goes along the Mass Emergency Management in conjunction with Mass Maritime, in conjunction with two interns, all kind of goes as one, so if you don't mind, I'll take it as one. First of all, I'd like to ask that Sean Medeiros and Justin O'Donnell step forward. Chief, please, if you like.
Yeah, you're gonna have to use it. We know you're loud, but you're just not loud enough for that.
Mr. Chairman, over the course of the last several months, we've been working diligently. Can you hear that?
Can hear you, so people at home. Okay, go ahead.
We've been working diligently with both interns from Mass Maritime Academy. We've been very lucky due to our proximity to Mass Maritime Academy that we've been able to tap the resources of some of the best students at the academy. Over the course of the last couple of years, we've brought other individuals forward to you as we have worked diligently to reach the level that we have with Local Emergency Planning Committee through the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. These two gentlemen worked diligently over the last several months to have us reach this milestone. The town of Wareham now is in fact at the top level of certification for the state, and very few towns and cities are at that level. We are at full certification, and our expiration date is January 31st, 2018. So a lot of effort went into this, tremendous amount, with coordination of all area departments. So we have asked you, members of the Board of Selectmen, to present to these gentlemen a certificate of their appreciation. So I'd like to ask you, Mr. Chairman, if you'd come forward.
Yeah, I'll have Madam Clerk read the, and I'd ask the board and Mr. Sullivan to get out in front. Mr. Sullivan, typically the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Sullivan is an integral part of this board when it comes to these emergency preparations and does an outstanding job. You weren't here last week when I gave you some kudos, or 2 weeks ago. So this is your prize. You get to stand there and help us to present these certificates, okay?
I have the copies, so you can take the plaques. Okay. The Board of Selectmen of Wareham, Massachusetts awards this certificate of recognition to Sean M. Medeiros for your tireless efforts in assisting Wareham's local emergency planning committee to achieve full certification from Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. Your effort has better prepared the town of Wareham with the ability to deal with a large-scale emergency incident. We, the Board of Selectmen, on behalf of the town and representatives of the community, wish to commend and thank you for your professionalism, dedication, and service to the town of Wareham. Signed this 12th day of March 2013, the Wareham Board of Selectmen, Stephen M. Holmes, Chairman, Kara A. Winslow, Clerk, Alan H. Slavin, and Peter W. Teitelbaum.
John, great job, brother. There you go. I did this section. If you just go down, introduce yourself.
The Board of Selectmen of Wareham, Massachusetts awards this certificate of recognition to Justin F. O'Donnell for your tireless efforts in assisting Wareham's local emergency planning committee to achieve full certification from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. Your effort has better prepared the town of Wareham with the ability to deal with a large-scale emergency incident. We, the Board of Selectmen, on behalf of the town and representatives of the community, wish to commend and thank you for your professionalism, dedication, and service to the town of Wareham. Signed this 12th day of March 2013, the Wareham Board of Selectmen, Stephen M. Holmes, Chairman, Kara A. Winslow, Clerk, Alan H. Slavin, Peter W. Teitelbaum.
No bad picture with him in it. Look at the sun.
Now, in keeping with this venue, I am going to ask the next person to step up, Doug Forbes. Doug is the local representative for the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, and I'd like to have him say a few words and present you, Mr. Chairman, with the certificate for full certification.
Good evening. I would like to congratulate Chief Richard Stanley, Lieutenant John Walchuk, and the other members of the Wareham Local Emergency Planning Committee in achieving full certification from the State Emergency Response Commission. Their application and plan were among the best that I have reviewed in my 28 years with the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. Tonight I would like to commend them for their hard work and dedication in achieving this most important goal. Thanks to their efforts, Wareham is now a stronger and safer place in which to live and to work. I'd also like to thank the Wareham Board of Selectmen for their support in this matter and the professionalism of our interns from the Massachusetts Mass Maritime Academy. Thank you for a job well done.
Take that same picture with Mr. Sullivan, town administrator, that would be appreciated.
Thank you very much, Doug. If you could stay here for a moment, please. Now, I would like to ask Commander Richards and Commander Kelleher, please step forward, from Mass Maritime Academy. If you'd like to step right over here.
like to ask you to say a few words about the program afterwards, but I wanted to at least present to Mass Maritime Academy, which has been such a godsend to this community in working with us on so many different issues. The internship program has been of tremendous value, not only for us, but also for the students and for the community and for the future of emergency management. I know in our efforts with Doug Forbes, he speaks so highly about the emergency management program and so forth, and it means the world to all of us. Doug, the interns, John Walsek, the work that they've done in emergency management has been second to none. So we felt appropriate, the Wareham Police Department, to present you with a plaque, and it reads as follows: presented to Massachusetts Maritime Academy Internship Program. In recognition of outstanding contributions and support towards the efforts of the Wareham Police Department and the local emergency planning committee, March 12, 2013. Thank you so much.
Speak as loud as I can. Thank you very much. We're very proud of our cadets. Obviously, they work hard, they go above and beyond, and they're impressive young adults that have quite a future in front of them. But I do want to thank you all, because we wouldn't have an internship program if we didn't have sponsors of the co-op program, and the chief and lieutenant go above and beyond as far as being role models and giving them advice, giving them some networking skills, and then letting them do their independent projects. So thank you very much for your support on behalf of the Academy. Appreciate it.
I'll just add a few words that I think one of the things that we teach our cadets at the Massachusetts Maritime Academy is the importance of strategic partnerships. Every time we form a partnership with a like-minded organization, we grow in strength, capabilities, and it helps all of us to be prepared to respond and recover and prepare for crises and to protect our people and our citizens and our cadets. So thank you very much for all you've done. We look forward to a long relationship and a long partnership. Tom Bourne.
You know, this is just one more step in the walkway to our future. You know, it was just probably, I'm never good with time, but it was probably close to 2 years ago when we formed and sanctioned the official, right, Chief? About 2 years ago now, we formed that and sanctioned that Wareham Emergency Management Team. And so, you know, for those of you who were able to listen a couple of weeks ago when we had our after-action review, where we had all the components here, tonight, you know, we see the contribution from Mass Maritime in conjunction with the police. I know these two young men. I've seen them around quite a bit, and they've done a great job. So you can see that we are really improving in these different areas. You know, unfortunately, when a storm comes, the power's still going to go out, right? You're still going to get mad at us. And one suggestion I got from a nice lady this week was, and Mrs. Winslow certainly has talked about it 100 times, is at some point finding some outlet for pets during these storms. I know that you guys had, what, a couple hundred people. You know, some of those people leave their pets home. Elderly people, well, elderly, I'm elderly too, I guess. I wouldn't leave my boys home alone. So I think that, I don't know how that fits into the plan, but somewhere on down the road, maybe even we could house them at the academy. You have a big place there. So I think that's one area, but really, in all seriousness, pets are an issue. But I just want the folks to know at home that, you know, you see all these committees being formed, and there really is work being done. on a daily basis. And so I just want to thank you all again on behalf of the board and the citizens of Wareham for all of your efforts through the police department and the Mass Maritime Academy, and MEMA and Mr. Sullivan as well. So thank you all once again.
Thank you. Can I stress my pet point? The issue of the pets in a crisis, and we learned this unfortunately in Katrina, is that people will shelter in place with their pets and they'll die. So it is, and I know the chief and I have talked over the years a number of times, and I've talked to the various animal control officers about it. I am hoping that that is something that we can, start to look at. I would much rather have a building where people can go with their pets than be taking their bodies out, which is unfortunately was one of the sad lessons from Katrina. I know I wouldn't leave my pets at home. I'd take my chances, and the biggest risk is the elderly, because their pets are sometimes truly the only companions that they have. So I'm hoping, Chief, you really got this thing rolling now. We can get on my pet project, no pun intended.
Very good. Mr. Campino, are you here? Hey, Guy, you mind if I switch up a little bit? Some of these same individuals are here for the presentation. Have you got time?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. At this point, I'd ask indulgence to take 9B out of order,
Okay.
because some of the same individuals are here to give us a presentation on the police strategic plan. Is that
Okay.
okay? Yes. Yes. All right. PowerPoint. Can we get somebody to just knock off the Windows set of lights, please? Oh, yeah, not all of them. Then if we get that on, we'll give Bobby a test to make sure that the folks at home can see that. Those guys did a lot of work. They did really a lot of work. I wasn't kidding you doing the police station. I don't know. They got their schoolwork done. The what? Yeah. While we're doing that, big faux pas on my part. This week, or actually, the end of last week, we lost a great citizen in Wareham. Martha Strahan, as most of you know by now, passed away. Martha was a tremendous volunteer to the town. She served on several boards over the years. The last couple of years, it was extraordinary to see her attending meetings, and she didn't have a car, but yet she managed to put in the extra effort of finding people to give her rides to meetings, and just putting out an extra effort. So if we could at this time, while these gentlemen are setting this up, to have a brief moment of silence for Martha, and our thoughts and prayers with her and her family at this time. Thank you. And also yesterday morning, it just, I don't know what happened. I said this, I think, at the beginning of the year, where everybody was wishing health and happiness. It hasn't worked out too well. Yesterday morning, I got a call from Freddie Anderson, Many know Freddie lives up on Onset Avenue, and him and his mom have been there for many, many years. I think going back to when that house was a gas station, right, Kevin? And a little general store there. And Fred's mom passed away yesterday morning, so if you keep Freddie and his family in your prayers as well and thoughts, I'd appreciate that.
Okay,
It has not been a good year so far for those kind of announcements. All right, Chief, you guys ready?
we're ready.
Bobby, can you see that on your screen back there? Okay. Please speak really clear and loud into those mics.
Yes.
Next up, we have the police department has been working for quite some time now on presenting a strategic plan to the town. That plan is now ready for this presentation, which you're about to see. We have put it off for a couple of weeks. We had to get through the storm, and then I wanted folks to understand what we went through the storm before we saw the strategic plan. So with that, I turn it over to the chief and his top man.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to introduce who I have with me right now. Seated to my right is Lieutenant Kevin Walsh, the Executive Officer of the Wareham Police Department and Operations Division Commander. Next to him is Lieutenant John Walsek. Lieutenant Walsek is the Administrative Services Division Commander and also my Deputy Emergency Management Director, who was responsible for a lot of what you have seen earlier tonight. And with us, the gentleman who puts a lot of the numbers together and works diligently behind the scenes all the time, Sergeant Walter Correa, who has been a tremendous asset to the police department, to the community, and worked diligently also in this with me. So we have come before you tonight to show you the fruits of the effort, not of us, but in fact of the whole department. The department memo went out about a year ago requesting anyone interested in being part of the strategic planning committee to come forward because we were looking for a cross-section of the department. Over the course of that time, we put together a great representation of the cross-section of the department. The people seated here, but also Sergeant Doug Jacinto, who's in charge of the operations, who's in charge of the Criminal Investigation Division, Sergeant Peter Flannery, a patrol supervisor, Officer George Dion, a patrol officer, Nate Aronson, who works midnights patrol officer, and communications officer Ed Johnson. So the team started to meet back about a year ago, March 6, 2012. And what we did is we met on several occasions and tried to come up with where we saw the future of the Wareham Police Department. We also looked at it from the perspective of where we've been over the course of the last several years as the foundation was being built for change. We worked diligently as a team over that period of time, and as we went forward, we created what we considered, and the group considered, the vision and laid the cornerstone for the bridge to the future. The Wareham police officers came up with what they considered important. The members of the Wareham Police Department share the values listed below, and those values drive the police service for the town. And this is important. This comes from them. This comes from the staff of the department, civilian and sworn. Compassion, impartiality, honesty, dedication to serving people, and physical courage. And in that role as being a police officer in any community, but especially at times the adversity faced by the men and women of our department, you need every one of those particular values. The mission of the Wareham Police Department. Again, these are the people who came up with the mission. The mission of the police department, in the spirit of community partnership, strives to respect and protect the individual rights, lives, and property of all citizens while reducing the fear of crime, improving quality of life issues, faithfully enforcing the laws with the highest standard of professionalism, integrity, and accountability. Now that's important because that's what's in their hearts. That's what's in the staff's hearts, which gives me and gives all of us a real sense of pride for the future of this organization. When we looked at what we had available on the police department currently, you'll see in the next slide the list of what our current resources are. But we also looked at it when we developed the strategic plan, as you'll see in your book, when we looked at what we needed to do to build on that cornerstone and foundation that was already built with accreditation, with the top level of certification with MEMA, with so many other things, award-winning when it comes to national law enforcement challenges with traffic safety, all of the things we've done over the last couple of years to prove to ourselves that we can do it, that the Wareham Police Department can in fact be the best of the best. These guys have proven it. This is a team of individuals who have shown they were in a tough spot. Back in October of '09, I put together a report in the Wareham Police Department when I first got here in August of '09 of my observations and the issues that need to be addressed. That report has been dealt with. And believe me, this report will be dealt with. It's not something that's going to collect dust and be something that's going to be shelved because of the dedicated men and women of the department and the buy-in that they have shown. So as we look at it, and we know that we're faced with tough financial constraints, and we're trying to deal with issues that are extremely difficult, we had to look at exactly what we were trying to do, what we were trying to accomplish. We had a meeting this morning with Sal Pina about his vision and the issues that he sees for the town of Wareham. And when we sat down this morning, we talked about tourism. We talked about all the things that are important for the future of Wareham and Onset and how we can move this town forward. And as we looked at those issues, Sal stated to me as a community development person, the police department is the most important thing that we can have to make sure that people feel safe in their property, their homes, and in their community, to rid the community of problems and so forth, and we have to invest in our police department. Now, I know in my conversation with Derek Sullivan, it's difficult with the finances and so forth, but at the same time, when it comes down to believing in what we're trying to do, Derek has been my biggest proponent. But at the same time, we have to realize that in order to get to a point where we can afford the things that we need to afford, then we're going to have to do certain things to get to that level, and that's why Sal Pina's involvement is so critical right now. What do we need to get there? If you look at what we
Is your intention for this to be interactive, or do you want to complete the presentation and then
right?
discussion?
I'd like to quickly go through just a few slides,
Okay.
and then be able to have conversation
All right.
about it. It's
Okay.
because again, this has been a year and a half work with these guys.
All right.
When we look at the current resource demands, as you see in your books, you will notice that we're looking for other things for the future, the unmet resource requirements. That is what it's going to take to get us to the level we need to be at, those unmet resource requirements. But the goals of the Wareham Police Department, the first goal is to reduce crime and improve the quality of life in Wareham. And we have purposes for those goals, which are clearly stated in your book. But to reduce crime and improve quality of life in Wareham. Again, that's our goal, to improve the quality of life. The second goal, improve collaboration with all town government individuals and agencies. That's important. Again, this comes from the men and women of the department. Improve collaboration with all town individuals and agencies, government individuals and agencies. That includes the boards, commissions, departments, and so forth. The third goal, to improve management systems in the Wareham Police Department. And by that, we're talking about working smarter. We're talking about smart policing, which we've introduced to the staff. DDAX, which is a program you'll see shortly, which is a national program that very few departments have, in fact, moved forward on, but we're one of them in leading in the industry. The fourth goal is enhance the health and well-being of Wareham Police Department personnel. That's important. They looked at that and said, you know, sometimes we feel as though we're left behind. And they spoke honestly. And you know what? They have been at times. So we need to make sure that those men and women who put on a bulletproof vest, who go out into the night with a weapon and who go into buildings by themselves at 3 o'clock in the morning while we're sleeping, that they're protected, they know they're appreciated. They hear that from everyone all the time. But there are certain unmet needs that they have as well, and that's what they're looking to meet. The fifth goal, develop a comprehensive strategy to develop new and incumbent talent in the Wareham Police Department. Let's face it, in a leadership role, any of us in a leadership role have to make sure that we're developing the people who report to us to someday take over in our spots. That is, in fact, a challenge that we all have and something we should take seriously. None of us are here forever. We all have a shelf life, whether it's appointed, elected, whatever it is, and our legacies will be one that simply makes sure that we did the best we could to develop the people after us to make things better for the people we serve. And that's what we're trying to do. And we've succeeded in a lot of that. And we've developed, one of our goals is to develop that plan even further to make sure that we develop the best possible police service to the residents. From a statistic standpoint, there's been great strides. The book clearly shows you exactly what we've been able to accomplish and how we accomplished it. And you will see, I won't bore you with numbers, but you will see some of the highlights of the statistical changes and some of the changes we made. And these are the things that make it extremely important for us when we have a citizen come forward, as all of you have seen as elected officials, hey, I have a complaint about such and such an area, and what have you guys done? And we can develop an information package for you to show exactly what we've done, how often we've been there, how much work we've done in that area, how many times we've had directed patrols and so forth. So you'll see those numbers. Also in statistics, there are a couple of charts that deal with motor vehicle violations and the importance of motor vehicle violations and the increase in the amount of work that these officers are doing on a regular basis under difficult circumstances. The next one is quality of life for social harm offenses. I think this is the most telling. One of the first things that I noticed when I came here in August of '09 was that there was constantly sirens flying around town. Everywhere I went, I heard sirens. I saw blue lights. It was constant. It drove me crazy. I couldn't understand what was going on and why we were running around chasing our tails. What was happening was the Wareham Police Department was a reactive agency, an agency that was reacting to calls for service on a regular basis. We are now a proactive police department. We're a police department that is, in addition to being proactive in getting out ahead of the curve, we are community-oriented and we are a problem-solving agency. So when you look at what we have done from a statistical standpoint with quality of life calls, they've reduced dramatically. Now, if you look at 2010, you say, why the spike in 2010 when everything else was starting to drop? We went out in 2010 with a bunch of neighborhood meetings and begged people to call us for the smallest offense. Call us with whatever you hear, see, whenever you need a cop, we're going to get there. So it spiked, and now you can see it's dropping down again. That's what we wanted. That was the goal. Call us. Don't harbor your feelings and say, I wonder where the cops are, I wish the cops were here. Pick up the phone and call us. The next slide, when it comes to community-oriented policing and having a partnership with the citizens of this town, is the most critical. Look at the internal affair complaints in 2008 and where they are now in 2012. And by the way, the 2012 complaint, we generated. That was us. That was a complaint generated by the Wareham Police Department against an officer. So our relationship with the community today is very good. No call goes unanswered. No complaint goes undealt with. We contact people, we deal with them, we make sure they're happy. When I hear somebody say that they aren't, we want to know date, time, I want to know who they spoke to, and we will make sure that we as managers of that police department will get on to the bottom of it and the public will get a good response back. And you know what? That's all the public was looking for. The public was looking for a responsive police department. They have it, and internal complaints have dropped because people do have an understanding. Everyone makes mistakes. And maybe they didn't understand where we were coming from. Maybe we didn't understand where they were coming from, but once we sit down and talk, they don't even want to complain. They leave shaking hands. The next step, this is where Walter comes in, Sergeant Correa. Data-driven approaches to crime and traffic safety. We've been very lucky to forge a partnership with the federal government, with a woman who lives here in Massachusetts, who travels here and has taken an interest in fixing the Wareham Police Department. So I want you to think of DDAX, data-driven approach to crime and traffic safety, as this. Think of the fact everything we've done to this point is we built the foundation. We are general practitioners at this point in time, and DDAX is going to make us specialists. DDAX is going to give us the ability, through real-time generated information, the ability to go out in advance of criminal activity and fix it, so as really to make a reduction and to drive problems down to its lowest level. Reduce the incidence of crime, crashes, and traffic violations in the community. Reduces social harm. That's where we are. An awful lot has gone into this by an awful lot of people, not just the group sitting here today, but I am open to any kind of questions. I can't say enough about this team that you have seated before you right now here, and also for all of them who have got the job done over the course of the last few years.
Could have the lights back on, please? In the back?
And by the way, Mr.
And-
Chairman, the book that was produced,
Oh, right, yeah.
right? In
Tell us
case
about the
you're
book.
asked, in case you're asked any questions, what this book cost nothing. This book was printed by a friend of mine who owns Flagship Press in North Andover, who's an old golfing buddy of mine, and produced them for nothing.
Outstanding. Okay, let's go down to the left. Mr. Titlebaum. Comments? Anything you'd like to say about this?
This is a nice document. It's a good historical retrospective, I think. It shows that the allocation of resources, I think, has been directed more out into the community. I can speak anecdotally of the parking lot and boat ramp that's in front of my house. That was a problem when I was a kid. Of course, when I was a kid, I was one of the problems. But going forward, it's nice to look down there, you know, at 1 o'clock in the morning and not see any cars down there. Or if I do see a car down there, there's a 50% chance that it's a police cruiser. So I am appreciative of those efforts. The difficult nut, of course, for you, Chief Stanley, and whoever succeeds you as the chief going forward in the town, is going to be implementing the remainder of your plan with the limited resources we have. And in that regard, I know at the budget meetings, I guess about a month ago, the department budget meetings, I know that was a difficult meeting for you personally. There were certain things you were looking for that I believe you feel strongly about for the safety of your men. And it's unfortunate that we're in a position where we really have to tighten our belts in that regard. But I do appreciate the fact that you know, you took that as well as you did. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I took a little time yesterday since I got the packet to go through it all. I think it was very well put together. It explained where we were, where we're going, where we hope to go. Like anything else, this is a long-term project. This doesn't happen overnight. The results don't happen overnight. Sometimes results go the other way a little bit before they go the correct way, which is to be expected. Our biggest problem really is how do we keep what we have and go forward, because we have issues, obviously, financially, which I don't have any answers for yet, which we're going to have to figure out. Our town administrator later on tonight is going to talk about the budget, and we're looking at some fairly good shortfall numbers right now, and the choice is not very easy. It's really a matter of whether the town makes up its mind what it wants to be and where it wants to go. Because if the town is not willing to contribute more, we have to give them less. So hopefully we'll come up with some solution down there. But thank you very much for the work you've done so far.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mrs. Winslow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief Stanley, and everybody that served on the committee. I did have the privilege of sitting down with the gentleman, the consultant that you worked with, and it was a wonderful conversation. Our police department and other public safety folks here in Wareham have struggled with tight finances for a long time, and they've always been professional. But what I see happening is more cohesiveness, and there's more. We had an incident out in my neighborhood a few weeks ago. They thought a child had gone through the ice on the pond, and we had everybody. We had Onset, we had Wareham Fire, we had EMS, Harbor Master, Police. It was wonderful to watch everybody work together. It was kind of like watching a well-choreographed dance. I've long been a believer that a good education system and a good public safety is really the cornerstones to a community. And if you build it, they'll come. If we can educate our kids, solves part of our crime problem. And if we have, a professional outreach police department, then the businesses will and the people will flock. So I like seeing these steps forward. And we're always going to be in tough times. There's never going to be enough money. But I'm proud of what you've accomplished. And it's taken an awful lot of time and effort on the part of an awful lot of people. It doesn't, you put it in a book, it makes it look easy. But I know for myself, that gentleman sat with me for quite a long time. So I can only imagine the amount of hours that you guys had to put in it. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'd make a couple of comments. First, thank you again for all the work that you in the department do for the town. I think that your approach here, working with Sal has a great vision. I know I've spent unlimited hours with him as well, and you can see that his efforts are really paying off when you start looking around at he was heavily involved with the crouton factory. He's been heavily involved with the 80 Makepeace. He's really pushed to get a lot of new business in Wareham, and create Wareham as a place where people want to come and do business and move their families and participate. Having said that, the next question is, if I'm going to move my family or my business somewhere, what kind of protection do I have? So I think you're right on track there in tying those two things in together. 3 weeks ago we had our after action summit, and we talked about all departments. Chief McDuffie talked about breaking down some of the silos, right? And Wareham, I'll say it again, Wareham has resources. So when people run around, the town's broke, the town's broke, the town's broke, as taxpayers, we pay a tax bill. The town, with its departments and school, they have an issue, but the town of Wareham doesn't really have an issue. When you look at districts and you look at money that Mr. Campina had, when you look at the whole pie, we're not as broke as people think we are or make it sound like. So, and that's why that discussion a few weeks ago was very important, so that as we begin to talk about an emergency compound or a single public safety compound, right? There are resources available to do those things. Maybe not in whole, but at least to get the project going. And even on the town side, I would submit that, and you and I have had some of this discussion throwing mud against the wall, that even on the town side, we have public safety agencies that are in silos. When you look at various departments that we have, and if those were all in one silo, there's a great savings there that can happen. And I don't know, I'm going to give Mr. Sullivan a chance to speak on this as well, because I think this is important, that people watching this, you don't come in and say, oh, he goes looking for money again, money, right? Because this is very important. If we can't protect the people here, Jeff Sweat said it great when we had that budget meeting that night. If we were building a new town called Wareham, or a new business in a town called Wareham, one of the first things you have to look at is how you're going to protect those people. You can have all the greatest schools in the world. You can have the best snow plows in the world. But if you can't protect those people that are living there, you don't have a town. So it's very important that we look at everything, as I keep talking about that clean piece of paper, and look at how we manage our public safety in the town departments. And I think that if you look at that, you're going to find some savings there. But again, we run three or four different public safety departments, whereas we could probably do well with one, right?
Absolutely.
That's not, but those are just my thoughts on this strategic plan. Down the road, if we're still sitting here 3 years from now with 4 different gas stations and all these different departments, shame on us for spending all that money. That if by combining these assets, we could save the town even more money, we could use that money and pump it back into public safety. So I think that you're right. You guys are right on track with this stuff. And I would give Mr. Sullivan, if you don't mind, you've had a chance to review this. I don't know if you participated in the process, because at the time you were kind of like the town financial analyst. So, but I think it's important that you comment on this.
Yeah, this was an in-house operation from the police department, which is one of the toughest things I think to do is to look at your own department with a critical eye, step outside of it, see what you're doing, what's not working, and basically, Chief, Kevin, John, Walter, for the rest of you, thank you for the ones that participated. One of the most amazing things I have, if I receive a complaint, I can see the chief's ears are steaming, steam coming out of him, because he says, come to us first. That's the place to go. And when I bring it forth, the first thing I receive is a complete report of the background, how many patrols they've had. It's one of the most amazing things that I've seen, professional and efficient. And I can't tell you how much that's just been impressive, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the guys and the women in the department there. It's tough, and I know every year I'm asking more for you and offering less financially. Doesn't feel good, but you guys step up to the bat every single time, and I appreciate what your department does. Thank you.
Good. Lieutenant? Comments?
I thank you.
You went through the process, John. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I think everybody would like to hear your thoughts.
My thought is that the fact that we solicited from everybody, all ranks in the department, from the newest to the chief, and to bring in those ideas. And I consistently put in grant requests that our department is willing to think outside the box, and I really do think we do that. 10 years ago, I never would have heard the word PERF in the police department, the Police Executive Research Forum. Now I hear it all the time. And those are things that I think it's very important. It's making us a more progressive agency. And I think this Emergency Planning Committee is one of the things we're working on in the strategic plan, and that's collaborating with the fire departments and EMS to make it better for everybody.
Right. Lieutenant Walsh?
The most impressive aspect of the presentation that you saw and the books that you have in front of you is that it's a collaborative effort of every rank in the police department, communications officers, detectives, sergeants, lieutenants. We all sat down, rolled our sleeves up, and came up with ideas, visions, and at times during the meeting it wasn't all smooth, but we all talked and we smoothed it out by the end. And that's the most impressive part of it, is it came from within, and I think everybody that worked on it is very proud of it. I know I am, and I'm proud of the people that worked on it, that opened up and aired it out, and we came up with this plan that now the hard work begins.
Yeah, right.
We have to work towards.
Right. Sergeant Correa?
Thank you. I too appreciate all that's been talked about, all that's being put into place regarding our direction. I feel like we have a direction. I feel like we're taking the next step. When Chief Stanley mentioned DDAX, DDAX essentially is looking at your data, looking at the crimes, looking at the traffic problems, analyzing, and then coming up with responses to meet those problems. And this is the first time in my 18, 19 years that I can remember doing anything like that.
Well, I can tell you that you don't have to look at statistics to know that when you leave here and take a right and you go down that hill onto Main Street, that's got to be one of the most dangerous places in town. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
You take your life in your hand every time you go there. I talked to Sal about that the other day, about trying to get some lights down there. He was with some guy from the state. But that's not an intersection. It's a tri-section that is just awful to get through there. So I don't think you need much surveying to tell that one, right?
True.
All right, anything else? What's the next steps, Chief?
Well, we got to get to work on some of these issues now. We've made a lot of progress, but we're not going to lay back on the progress we made. You see the section that deals with the progress, and you know what? In 3 years, you're going to see another section with 3 more years' worth of progress as the next strategic plan is there. And if we do get knocked down a couple of times, we will get up, as the town administrator said, because you know what? Those values that you saw up there are in every member of that police department.
So
And
what I meant by that is if you could just tell the people the next steps. Does the committee continue to meet? Are there regular meetings? Are there?
Yes.
I mean, how does it work from this point
Yeah, we'll
forward?
continue. The key members of the committee we have a roadmap now, and we have assignments. And if you look in there, you'll see who's assigned to what, by when. And in the book, I mean, it was too much for a PowerPoint presentation, but if you look in that book, it identifies the people, it identifies the dates, and they have to deliver. And this is all about relentless follow-up. And believe me, there will be relentless follow-up.
I know. By the way, I know it's in the book, but I need you to say it so that folks at home, they don't have a book, so they need to understand what the steps are. And the follow-up question to that is, if someone wants a book, is this up on the police website?
It is going. That book will be online.
Okay.
Yep. It's not online today, but it will be online the next week or so.
And Derek, do you have copies of that book in the office, or do you keep them at the police station?
We-
Do you have a lot of copies? Did your buddy?
Oh no, those are rare.
Ah.
So hang on to what you got, because I
Well, play him in
muscled
another,
them for
play
as
him in
many as
another
I
round
could.
of golf and lose, and the
Yeah.
fact that he
I
beat you,
muscled
probably
him for
get
as
another
many as
100
I
copies
could.
out of him.
But hey, thank you all for your
Thank
support,
you.
Steve. I know
Gentlemen.
I know our many conversations about this and about the future of the department. I appreciate your commitment and the work you've done with us and all of
we're
you.
going to get this done, and I'll tell you, we will get it done.
So thank you all very much.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, back to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, we have no bills or documents to sign.
Outstanding.
We have no licenses or permits. So that brings us up to the SOAR business.
Mr. Campaign, are there any citizens waiting for anything that I'm missing? No.
No.
Okay, Guy.
So we have.
Thanks, Chief. You
um,
get everything? Whose packet is that? Guy, whose packet is that there on the table?
Those are just agendas.
Ah. There was a big stack of them, Mr. Barrows. I think we were looking at the wrong table. They're over there. The agendas. It looks like about 50 of them there.
Derek brought them in.
Good evening, Mr. Campina.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good evening, Mr. Sullivan. In your packet, I believe you have what we're proposing, or I'd like to present to you as a beginning of an answer to a problem that's been common in Wareham, and it specifically speaks to buildings or groups of buildings that have a single line from the street, from the water department, coming to this single building with multiple units and also multiple buildings fed by one line. And the issue has been, I included the Wareham sewer bill policy about abatements, and this is where we've had issues. There's a provision for abatements if you shut the water off, and that's shut off by the department, the water department, either Onset or Wareham. And once you do that, and water has been off for 1 year, then at that point in time, you can present for an abatement, and we can put the account on hold, and your sewer bill doesn't continue to add up when you have a vacant unit. With the particular buildings in town, let's say that you have an older building, one water line comes in, and over the years you've developed 5, 6, 7 units, and so you rent all these units out. to apply the provisions in the Wareham sewer bill policies, you can't do it, because if you shut the water off, the entire building is out. Right. So what this talks about is the owner of the building, he or she can, within the building, set up valves. And those valves can be shut off under the direction of the sewer commissioners, shut that valve off, which shuts water off to that unit, so that particular unit can go on hold. So let's say that building had 7 EDUs. Well, while it's vacant, it could be reduced down to 4 EDUs, and that's the scenario that this whole thing speaks about. I think it's prudent. I think it's time. We've had these discussions for quite some time on how to deal with this. I think this is one way to do it. So I'm presenting it tonight to you folks.
Now,
and you can go.
You know, we've talked about this obviously at length, but this, without having to read all this out loud, when I have a vacancy, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call your office. Right, and I'm going to say, sewer department, I got a building here, I'm closing it up, right? Then you would control the locking and unlocking only. The owner of the building is responsible for installing the lock, totally, 100%. We pay nothing. It's their responsibility to pay.
Correct.
And then it's their responsibility to pay you, your department, to lock, unlock, right?
Correct.
All that cost is covered by the owner of the building.
Correct. Correct.
Mr. Titlebaum?
Questions? Yeah, just a couple here. I see in your draft language here, you've put in a fee of $50 to lock the shutoff valve shall be paid before the lock is placed, and then directly below that it says a fee of $50 to unlock the shutoff valve shall be paid before the lock is removed. And I think that's good. My concern with such a policy is we don't want to have sewer personnel have to run out continually every month. Okay, this month I don't have a tenant, I want to shut the unit off. That month, oh great, I've got another tenant in, I want it back on. I'd like to see and get your thoughts on possibly putting in some kind of time limitation in terms of how long a unit must be vacant before there is a shut-off. I don't want these people to have to sit around for a year, which under the current policy is as good as it gets, and further, doesn't work if you're an apartment building owner and you've got 6 units and 2 of them are vacant. I understand they're going to want to save some money, but would you give some thought to the notion that your unit has to be vacant for X amount of time before you can get a shut-off installed?
Well, Correct. You have to consider that the owner has to purchase the equipment.
Oh, right, exactly.
Has to pay to have the equipment installed.
Oh, sure.
And then it's another $100, 50-50, right? So if your unit's vacant for a month, you're not going to do this. It's not. Right. I mean, it would cost you more to do this. So by deems of the fees, what is one of these people paying a year? What would they pay if they didn't lock it off for the year?
It's $650. $600.
So we're talking. Divide that by 12, and you've got your number, which is a little bit more than $50 a month. So I guess in that instance, it's more or less a wash. At this point in time,
if you get somebody who's, I would think if it was going to be Peter, if it was going to be maybe 3 or 4 months that they knew it was going to be empty, it might be worth it.
Right.
But other than that, it's not really worth it.
It's not worth it. If you look at the policy existing, we won't without adding this to it, it says that the water must be off for 1 year. In other words, you have an apartment building and it's vacant for a year. You have to go to the water department and ask to shut the water off. So you're paying for that year. You pay sewer for that year. And then you have the water shut off. Then you must go further. And then so if we don't put it on hold for some reason, you're responsible for everything after that. So all this does is allows them, they're vacant. They have to be vacant for a year before they even come forward.
Okay.
So and it's also we're doing is adding to the existing policy just another provision because they don't have the ability to have the water department, Onset or Wareham shut them off. Because we have a pre-existing policy that says, yes, you can do that. You go to the water department and say, please shut my water off. They charge them and give them a letter of verification. This water has been off to this place for a year. And so once they have that, then they can move forward for abatement. So all we're saying is that individuals don't have they have a single line feed and multiple. They don't have that opportunity. We're going to give them the opportunity to spend their money, individualize every unit or building, pay for it themselves, and then they can utilize provisions that we currently have. Just another way of locking other than the water departments and the sewer department under the direction of the sewer commissioners would be that public utility that takes charge of locking the building.
Well, this is the second time you've said that. I wasn't aware of that. When we talked about this, and we've had several discussions about this, my impression was that the sewer commissioners would vote to pass the policy.
Correct.
You and Mr. Gifford and Mr. Sullivan, as the day-to-day managers of the water treatment facility, you would deal with the day-to-day operations. It's not the sewer. You're not going to be in here on Tuesday night saying, oh, Joe wants to put a lock or Harry wants to put a lock. You guys are going to deal with that
We'll
on
definitely
a daily
will,
basis,
but I think
not the sewer commission.
I think the sewer commissioners need to be made aware of every time we do something.
Oh, I don't have an
it
issue
wouldn't
with-
be like we need your permission, because we have a policy in place.
Right.
But remember, and that's to lock it. If it becomes an abatement issue down the road, then you folks will definitely
That's a
deal with
different
it.
story.
But to implement this, no, we'll take care of it. But again, it would be to you folks, because I think the sewer commissioners should be involved
and we
in
could
all
get
this
that,
decision-making process.
and you could get that notification
Quite simply.
through you report to Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Gifford. You'd report that to them. They would send it to the board.
Correct.
Mr. Sullivan could put it in his report. But we're not going to be in the business of approving everybody who wants a lock. No, I don't agree
No.
with that. That's not what we talked about.
I constantly use the words under the direction because everything that I do is under the direction of the sewer
Right, but we
commissioners.
would create the policy. You would
That's
enact
right.
the policy.
I would enforce the policy. But
Right.
again, that policy, I am acting under the direction of the sewer commissioners
Correct.
at all time. At no time would the sewer department do anything without the direction of the sewer
Understood
commissioners.
that part.
That's
but
and
you
that's
still
why I put
haven't
it in
answered
there.
my question, I don't think.
Yes,
My
I did.
question is
We'll
that
take care of the actual. Somebody will come here. We'll take care of that. And
you
we'll
don't need the sewer
No,
commissioners.
but I'll make notification to the sewer
Correct.
commissioners that here's what we're doing because I think the sewer commissioners have to be informed and involved in everything
Oh,
we do.
absolutely, yeah. Okay, we're on the same page.
Just one more question, Mr. Chairman.
Oh.
Obviously, interest in this has spurred you to come to us looking for this policy. Do you have any way of anticipating how many requests in a given year you might receive for this sort of thing?
I don't. I know there's 4 or 5 on the table at this second in the past years.
Now, that's not a fair question because I'm asking you to guess what's going to happen with something you don't already have.
But I know
So-
that the people that are coming forward, and there's others that we say to them simply, there's no provision for you, and they go away because there is no provision for them, and they go away. So this is just to give them a provision to exercise and have the same rights as somebody that has water, a single line feeding, and a lot of buildings have them dispersed each and individual water units or whatever they do. So this just gives them the ability to have the same opportunity that's in this.
Okay, and with that, I'll close by not asking you a question about what the financial impact is because you can't guess at that.
I can't guess. And again, something we're doing to speak to that, and that's a good question, is we implemented an audit of EDU annually. So we'll be able to tell you that because I can't tell you now. We've never audited EDUs. We've never paid attention to them. So now with the annual audit of EDUs, and we're actually developing a program for that, and we have a spreadsheet, then we'll be able to follow this because I'm sure there's EDUs we're not getting. And so we'll be able to give you concrete answers to what we're doing. So that's a good question. I hope to have the answer for you after the audits.
Great, thank you.
Guy, on this particular program you're doing, just so I understand properly, normally someone has to wait a year with the water shut off to come back and ask for an abatement, correct?
Correct.
What we're doing here now is we're taking a facility, say an apartment house or a rental units, whatever. One line's coming in. We're not shutting the water off at the street, obviously.
Correct.
And there is no time frame wait now for the individuals, which everybody else has to wait a year for an abatement.
No, they still wait the year. The whole thing is that they shut the water. See, if you read the policy, it says, and again, I want to be very clear, that's if they're going to apply for abatement. And so most people shut the water off with the water department at the street. They wait the year and they apply for abatement. And then we go back, we say, okay, show us the letter. The water's been off for years, so at the end of the year, we go forward. Because what happens more times than not, Selectman Slavin, is that people come years later after the fact, and they bring these letters, so we have to deal with that. And we only have the ability to go back 1 year for abatement. So this just gives them a provision to shut their water off legally, and then they can go forward, and hopefully they have it rented. If they don't, a couple of years down the road, what we do is, and we do at the end of the year, we will ask you to put the account on hold, because we don't want to accumulate any money. So at the end of the year, they fulfill their obligation, and then we'll come to the sewer commissioners and say, in the place of an abatement, we're asking to put this account on hold, because they've satisfied the year requirements. So now can we put this account on hold because it's still vacant, and that means we don't charge them sewer bills going forward until it becomes, and that's why in the end of this I said it has to be in writing, because it's got to be a paper trail to make sure we meet the date. So that's the.
So basically what you're saying is for the 1 year time frame is when they shut this off at the individual, not at the individual apartment unit, that has to sit for a year?
Correct.
Okay, it's not quite clear. The other thing is, what I would ask is that on this last second to third paragraph there, which says if a building with multiple units, it'd be good to run through all that, as a test, each step, to see what the cost is, see how viable it all is, and whether you can actually perform it, what cost it's going to cost you.
Well,
I'm just looking at this, and I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to
I don't either, but the individual owner, if it's worth him, the ones that are coming forward saying that they'd like to have a provision that it would be worth their cost to work with inspection services to actually have the plumbing done that allow a valve to be there. No cost to us. All we're going to do is come there, physically turn the valve off, put a lock on it, and go away. That's all we're physically going to do at the department. And they're paying for the lock, and so they're paying for it all. So a good question would be: is it worth it to the property owner? That's their call, not mine. We're just giving them provision if they so choose to use it. What they do is their business. It's their business. They can decide how to spend their money. But if you look on the actual Wareham sewer bill policy, it says the water must be shut off by either the onset or Wareham water districts or water departments at the street for more than 1 full year. If you don't have the ability to shut it off at the street, then you can't take advantage of this. So we're just saying we'll shut it off, that individual unit, so you can take advantage of this provision. And it has to be off for a year. And that eliminates a month here, 2 months there. So it's got to be a full year. So it's just given that group of people the right to, or property owners, the right to take advantage of this provision that we presently have.
Yeah. The only reason I'm asking is I'm just looking here, and it says inspectional services, is involved, and it also says that Wareham Pollution Control Facility personnel under the direction of Sewer Commission when installing the valve.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at, I see overhead costs for us. That's all I'm trying to get at.
There's none. Again, why put inspectors? I don't want anybody to get the impression they can do this themselves because they have to hire a plumber, because sometimes you have to spell things out. I'm finding the hard way. If you just generically say, in other words, they have to have a plumber. That plumber has to pull a permit, so it includes all that. So I just want to make sure the property owner clearly knows that he's not going to go in there and sweat it on himself, and it needs to be done properly. That's all. And so that's why I put the language in there, because you have to have a plumbing license, and then you have to have a plumbing permit, then you have to have an inspection. That's all it's saying. I want them to realize that it entails that. So, that's
my only point would be that we make sure we listed this under their expense, not the town's.
Okay, we can clarify this at their expense. Absolutely. I thought it did, but if it doesn't, we'll say at the expense of the property owner. Absolutely.
It's not clear.
Okay, I'll add that in there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Mr. Campina, I'm happy to see that we're making progress on this because we've talked about this for a long time. It's been an ongoing issue. The only question that I have is the other part of the issue is the beginning part of the policy with the water shut off and the waiting a year. We've had a lot of people come and we've said we're going to talk about that. Wouldn't it make sense for us to review the entire policy as a whole?
I think the time will come, absolutely. I just think that we've got an immediate need to address it because of folks that want to move forward. So, absolutely, this is one of the policies because waiting a year itself. But there's merit to that because we, as Selectmen talk about, we don't want people to say, I'm off, I'm on, because we can't track that. And then we lose sight of it, and then people have no sewer bill and they're using water. So we really have to look at the 1 year because that is such a burden that you clearly have an issue if you can use that 1 year policy. And so it seemed to have worked. And the reason is because we have seasonal homes also. And a year would mean that you can't just go away in the summer, come back in the winter, go away in the summer, go away in the winter, come back in the summer, and say, okay, my water's off, and therefore I should stop my sewer for 6 months. That's not the intent.
No.
That's all. So we can get into this. You're right. We should review this policy and all the policies. This is just one more we have to.
Well, I think this is a great idea. I'm just suggesting that if we're going to just tack this on to the end of the policy, that we look at that policy while we're doing it instead of doing it. That's all I'm suggesting.
I don't have a problem with it. I was going to add it to this policy, and then, yes. And the other thing, this whole Wareham sewer bill, we have to put this out with billing again. We haven't been doing that, and we need to because this talks about 30-day windows. This is pretty specific, so we got to get this in the bill so folks can read this, know what their rights are and the time frame, and then we can probably have more timely abatements. But so for right now, I wanted to add it, get it out in the bill, which I'll talk about in a second, get it out in the bill and go from there. But if you think it's something we can bring back and talk about, absolutely, I don't have any problem discussing it because this and many other policies, this is just one of them. I hear what you're saying. So this is an immediate fix, as far as I'm looking at it, and then we can get into a long-term fix. However the board wants to do this, I am willing to work any way you want to do it. I'm here to do whatever is a pleasure of the board to get this done, and the time frame the board suggests, I don't have a problem with any of it.
All right, great, thank you.
Motion.
Do you want to vote on the policy?
Yeah. Well, while she's looking at that, I just want to thank you because you know that this is an issue that we've been struggling with, and I'm glad to see that we're finally getting this piece put to bed.
The only concern
And then those other policies, you're supposed to be bringing those in.
I'm working. I have another one coming this week that you'll have in 2 weeks. So I'm going to slowly, each week, try to present something that you have a couple weeks to review it, and then we can sit. And so I agree. We'll move forward.
Mr. Chair.
Yep. Right here.
Yeah, no, I have it, but the only concern that I have is that I thought that Mr. Teitelbaum and Mr. Slavin had asked for some changes. So do I include those in the motion, or?
You can certainly do that. And just
Okay.
say that,
Well, I just need to know exactly.
updated as the comments were made by Mr. Slavin.
Mr. Slavin was concerned that it doesn't clarify that it's all at the owner's expense. So we need to include this policy that it's all at the owner's expense. So they know up front that we're not paying for any of this. They're paying for it all. So
Janet will pick up on that as part of the motion and pick up Alan's comments.
In looking at this, Mr. Chairman, what I would suggest is if we look at the third line where it says the owner at his or her expense, I would strike at his or her expense from that portion and have the sentence start off reading, the owner can install valves to each rental unit or individual building in the group of buildings under the direction of a plumber to be approved.
Mr. Chair, I don't mean to interrupt you, but if you have it there, do you want to make the motion instead of me writing it down? That would be a little easier, I think.
Expense. Okay. It does. I hear you saying. Okay. I see what you're doing.
I apologize for interrupting you, Mr. Teitelbaum, but
Nope. I'm just actually scrawling it out now. Why don't I read it, and then if we want to have any discussion over the language, fine. If not, then I'll just make the motion afterwards. Okay, I move that we adopt the policy as presented to us with the change in the third line, the new language to read as follows. The owner can install valves to each rental unit or individual building in the group of buildings under the direction of a plumber and to be approved by inspectional services, all at the expense of the owner, comma, services that would allow water flow to be shut off to any unit that is unoccupied.
second.
Motion made and seconded. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
you.
All right. Discussion regarding SOAR policy. Is that the same policy?
No, I think in general, someone had asked last week about moving the policies forward, and it was
Mrs. Winslow just alluded to that a second ago about
yes,
other policies.
other policies, and I think at the last meeting it was discussed that after the new board was in place, and a liaison, wherever you say that word, is going to be assigned to the sewer and to take Mrs. Bigley's place, and we can continue on. That was this, but I don't know.
I would, you know what I would do if I were you? I would bring your policies forward.
I'll keep doing it.
You don't need to have a selectman liaison to bring
you say better than I.
liaison to bring policies forward.
Well, it wasn't to
You
bring
take
forward.
take that on as yourself.
Okay, I'll do it. It was just a discussion with the
That's
member of the
okay.
sewer commission.
Do it
just to
yourself.
have-
It'll be done much quicker.
I will do that. Okay.
Any other SOAR business, Mr. Campino?
Yes, I want to, this is, I just got this, and this is pretty important. It's the bill. It's the second half commitment. As you're probably well aware, Maureen's been out. She's had cancer. She's been fighting, had surgery, and we just got her back, and she rushed through this. And so we've been struggling. And the way it's set up, and we're working on that because it's unacceptable to me, but she's the only one that could bill. So she come back in yesterday. She rushes to me last night, and I need to get the second half bill out for sewer. And so I'd like to get this signed. We do it every year, so I can give it to you, but I'd like to get this through. I want to get bills out. It's ASAP. Year's closing out, and I need to get this done to give people time to pay it in this fiscal year.
Give it to Mrs. Winslow to make an motion. You just got it yesterday?
Yes.
Well, then it's less than 48 hours. He needs to get bills up. We need to get money in. Go ahead.
If we could all just take a quick look at it, Mr. Chairman.
She's going to read it right now.
Oh, okay, thanks.
The only question I have, though, is this an unforeseeable?
Yeah, he just got it. Needs it done.
I just don't want us to get in trouble. And
Well, why don't you make the motion? And if we get a second, we'll vote on it. We'll move forward.
I move to approve the FY13 second half SOAR usage billing in the amount of $2,637,000. I'm sorry, $2,637,037.76.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Titlebaum, second. Anything on the question? When do these bills go up?
January 31st. February, we start them. So we had no one to do these bills. Actually, I was talking to Vadar to have a seminar to show us how to do billings. And
Whoa.
That's going to happen. So
Whoa. Take me back a step.
I will.
Did you say the bills go out on January 31st?
January 31st, it closes. So what we do is February, we get them out. By the end of February, the bills are out in the mail.
You know it's March 12th?
Correct. So what's been happening, and it's been crazy, is that the person that does these bills has been out in Family Leave Act, and so she's been out.
You just got this last night.
Correct. She had cancer surgery in
It
October.
can be under any other sewer business.
That's what I thought. That's why I brought it up, because we just got this, and so I said, okay, let me just move this forward.
All right. Anything else on the question?
I'm sorry.
All in favor?
I'm sorry.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I apologize.
4-0-0.
It's just the
Now
impact.
let's get that out. I mean, you're only 6 weeks
Apologize.
behind. Oh, wait a minute.
Mr. Chair,
On the way back. Any other sewer business?
Mr. Chair, may I ask Mr. Sullivan a question? Can we ensure that somebody is cross-trained and this does not occur again?
We're already doing it.
And,
Yes,
and can you
absolutely.
provide a report to the board by the end of the month as to what the process is in place? And why weren't we notified of this months ago, that this was going to be a problem?
Well, I first came to you in December when that part of the building became the problem, and so we're working on it. And so we had to get Vadar to teach us, and that's not something we can do overnight. And we have worked on it. We've got a temporary guy in there that's working with us. He's going through the computers. We would have got it done, but it's just that when she came back, we were able to rush it, and so we got it completed last night, so I wanted to move it forward. But we were going to get bills out. It wasn't going to be timely, but we're definitely going to get them out by the end of the fiscal year. So. And then we also been waiting patiently, and I thought that this individual would be back long before this, and so it just didn't happen the way we thought it would. So
Hey,
we're just riding it out. It's new to us.
okay, thank you. If you could just get that through Mr. Sullivan, get that report to the board, it would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely, because we are doing it on all
Under
things.
any other sewer business, though, I have a comment. Well, it was probably a week ago, Friday or Thursday, I drove to someone's house in the Oakdale area. And I got to tell you, if I was a homeowner living there, I wouldn't pay you the $18,000 at all. And now I'm not directing this at you, but it is something that we need to get figured out. This guy has a beautiful home, just got sewer put in by the town, was assessed $18,000, right, for his betterment.
Mm-hmm.
In the street, looks like a bomb hit it. Deplorable.
What street?
Dirt, chunks, holes, you name it. It was very dangerous. I thought it was dangerous even driving down that street. And he said that maintenance was there probably, I think he said 2 weeks before that, and graded the road for him.
Okay.
I have issues how that can even happen. And the answer you get is, well, that's how it was before the sewer went in, right? You've heard that yourself.
Absolutely, I've got a video of it. Yes.
You know, and that's how it was before, so
Yes.
that's how it has to be now. Well, I got to tell you, Mr. Sullivan, to you as well, directors to you as well. You got a couple of emails from the gentleman. I went to his house and visited with him, and that it was horrible. I drove around that neighborhood. And to think that we spent millions of dollars and left these neighborhoods worse off than they were before, and then charged them $18,000 for a betterment for sewer, I just think that's. If I was him, I would be outraged just like he is. He's not the only one. But when you have trouble just driving to your house, getting to your house safely. After all this work's been done, I would certainly hope that in the future, that if any other contracts are done, that we don't leave neighborhoods the way they were before. If they were deplorable like that, that we would make sure that when people left, that they were better than they were before, because that's the whole point of the betterment. But this guy's no better off than he was before. He had a great brand new sewer, septic. Before we went in there, we tore up his place. We put sewer in. We left the road worse than it was and charged him $18,000. So you can understand how he feels.
I
At some
empathize
point,
with him,
I think we
but
need
just
to get this up on an agenda. But yeah, go ahead, Peter. But it is deplorable.
Well, I was going to suggest that there's no point in me talking about it. I don't know where this is. But if this is an issue and you think that perhaps even it's a warranty issue going forward with the work that was done, if we still can make warranty claims, then perhaps we should take a look at that and see whether we can.
I think that's where they get you technically, because they say if the road wasn't, what's the legal?
the road was not asphalt. They put it back like they found. The road was not an asphalt road. It was a dirt road. And when they got there, it was full of pits. It had holes everywhere, so it was deplorable before they got there. And so they put the sewer in, and then after they put the sewer, they graded it out, filled it in, and made it. So over time, which has been a couple of years, with rain and all that, you get back to pits and
I think maintenance.
So they got to go there and keep grading it. So it's a maintenance issue.
I think maintenance has been out there 3 or 4 times since the sewer's been.
They've been out there at least that, if not more, previous to sewer, because it's been an ongoing problem forever.
Town road guy?
I'm not so sure, because I think it's one of those roads that the town takes care of. That's not a town road. I can get a clarification on that.
I would ask we find out first
Yes.
what the status of the road is.
When you go through the lights.
Yeah, but just find out whether it's a town road or a private road.
Yeah, on the
I'll
left
do
hand
that.
side,
And just see what
not
the deal
adding
is,
it.
because
What is it?
with it,
Holly,
Hollow tree.
correct.
with what's gone on this winter in particular,
Mhm.
with the freezes and thaws, because it wasn't really good, but with the rain and everything else, you know,
Just so people know,
Hollow Tree. What was it? Is it Hollow Tree Ave?
yeah.
Hollow Tree Ave, yes.
Just so people.
That's not the only one in that
Oh,
neighborhood.
oh, I'm
We'll
sure.
take a
As
look
you
and
know,
see.
there are more.
Well, just so people understand, there are roads in this town that are not town-accepted roads, but for purposes of public safety, to allow emergency vehicles to have at least a reasonable opportunity to get to somebody's home. Municipal maintenance does often go out and grade and help out to try to keep the road in a decent shape. So this may fall within that, I don't know, but certainly we can look into it and try to get back to this particular person.
I mean, even Mr. Sullivan, if we just did that huge job out on Onset Avenue, right? If even if we could dedicate the scrap, the scraping,
The grindings?
the grindings to some of these areas. I know sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't, sometimes it's recommended, sometimes it's not, right? But if we could reuse what we're digging up, anything to try to help these people, it was really.
Well, it's been ongoing.
And then the
and
plows
it's-
go down there, right? And then at the bottom of the hill, they're hitting when you get down the bottom, you can hear that plow bang. It's hitting your
Cutout.
sewer cap there,
Yeah,
right?
That's right, absolutely.
So eventually that's going to get damaged, and somebody's going to have to pay for that. You.
And we have the same issue in Parkwood along Crabtree Lane.
Yeah, well, it's his sewer cap
We're
that they're
getting
beating
hit,
up
absolutely.
with the plows. Yeah.
There's these issues. So I think a
So-
long-term plan for not just this one, but all, how we're going to address them after everybody leaves. But they put them back like they find them,
I
and,
know.
and then we'll have to move forward and figure this out. But
Well,
yes,
I know
I understand.
It's, like I say, I'm not looking for a solution today, but I want to bring it up under any other business because it is business that we have to address between Mr. Sullivan, sewer commissioners. It really becomes a road issue once the contract is closed. It's more under Mr. Sullivan's purview. But going forward, I don't think we should allow these contracts to come and go without fixing the streets when they leave. Better than they were. I don't want to hear that story about
No,
how
we're-
they were before.
Well, but
because
I don't have a problem with that, but
I
we
know.
have to put a window on it because especially a dirt road, if they fix it and it's acceptable when they leave, then how long does that have to be acceptable? Is
Right.
it a year down the road? I mean, what is that time frame? Because
Right.
sooner or later it's going to get in the deplorable conditions, and the homeowner says, "I paid this money. It's 3 years later. I want it back." So there's got to be some reasonability here that the town and the ever-going maintenance will take care of it. But
I understand, but if there's a dirt road there today,
and then
you
what
le-
always has been.
and if there's a point in time where we need to upgrade and fix,
That's
the time to do it when it's all ripped up and you're laying the sewer in.
I
Would
agree.
you
And
not
so when
agree?
the contract went out that we signed, that's right. You're right. We
Understood.
should, that's when we should have grabbed it.
I'm
You're
not talking
absolutely
about
right.
that contract. I'm
Yeah.
talking about in
In the future, how we're going to
If you
get
went
better.
in there and started a new project on that road,
We'd add it
Hollow
in.
Tree Lane, I would expect that the future town contracts would say, you come in here, you're going to lay the sewer, and you're going to fix this before you leave.
I
Not
agree.
leave it like it was.
That's
You're
right.
going to fix it.
I agree.
That's
the
how
time
you
to grab
better
it.
something.
Absolutely.
You don't better something with a pipe in the ground, and the people who are buying the house still can't get to the house.
I
Because
understand.
it's dangerous.
I agree with you.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure we're clear. I'm better because the property's
I'm
better by
not
sewer. That's all. But
accusing you of anything.
No, no,
I'm just
I'm not
bringing
feeling
it up,
accused.
guy.
But I want to fix. I want to
'Cause
fix the problem in the future.
It is an issue
Yes, it is.
for people who are paying all that money.
I certainly understand that, and I just want to be clear too. I mean, we don't have a bylaw, but they get sewer, and that 2-bedroom home now becomes a 4-bedroom home that they couldn't have done without sewer. So there is a betterment. There is a advantage to having sewer.
Yeah, sure. If you can get to the house after,
If you
that's
drive
okay.
along the roads, along the beaches, you'll see these McMansions that are a result of sewer. So they
But
do get a betterment.
you need to get it. You need to have access to the home as well.
Absolutely, and they do. I agree with you, 100%.
You're going to get anybody to buy that house, whether it's got 4 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms qualified.
They just sold the house
if
on
you
that.
can't get to it.
Well, they recently sold a house on that street, so obviously there's a
Yeah.
market. I agree with you, though, Mr. Chairman. I honestly agree with that. I see what you're saying.
All right. Anything else on there from Mr. Campina tonight? Mrs. Winslow? Thanks, guy.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for the work on that policy, by the way. That's
Thank you. I have another one
outstanding work.
coming, so I'll just keep them coming.
Good.
I
Keep 'em
appreciate it.
coming.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Madam Clerk?
next we have the closing of the spring town meeting warrant.
Can't hear you.
I'd suggest that we do E before A.
Yep.
Just
Works for me.
just in case there's anything in the warrant that
Yep.
doesn't go forward.
Can you do E before A, please?
Yeah. E is the preliminary discussion on department submitted warrant articles.
Right. Anybody, I take it you have something?
No, I just thought that that would be the correct way to do it, just in case
Is
there's
Mr.
something.
Sullivan speaking?
I know
Looked
that
like he was
you've-
gonna speak at this point.
I was not there at the Saturday meeting to discuss some of the warrant articles that I'm bringing forward. I believe the first one that's coming from my office.
Now, some of your folks did show up, so Mrs. Winslow, if it's already been presented, just have it skip it, will you?
Just follow the. If we could, just, Mrs. Winslow went and did all the work for us by basically listing the articles we hadn't done.
Well, I don't want him to address the ones that have already been addressed.
No, what it is she has a list of articles that were not addressed.
Do
and
you want-
tabled.
Understood.
So if we just go by
He's
that
gonna
list.
go through his department ones right now.
Correct.
If we've already done them, I'm asking her to let him know, to skip it, that's all.
That's all I'm saying is it actually says
Mr.
budget.
Sullivan, please.
You have that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm using the list there, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it. The first article would be
Yeah.
Article 6, which is our entire budget article. This obviously is one that will not be finished until right before we will actually print it on there. It's still a work in progress. On Sunday, I sent the most recent preliminary budget to the board. I will also be presenting that to the selectmen, and I'll speak about that. We can do it now, or as I go
right
over
ahead.
the town administrator's report. The newest budget article brings in the governor's aid that we had spoken about previously. Increases our local aid by about 248,000. However, it increased our assessments by 239,000. So there was no minimal net gain there. One of the big items you'll see in here, and it's something that I think we'll be looking for guidance, is the reserve fund has been boosted from $100,000 to $602,125. What that represents is the Upper Cape Cod Vocational School has requested a 19% increase, or $502,125 this year. I'm proposing that we level fund that. However, if the other member communities vote in favor of this budget, we will be compelled to pay that full assessment. So we will hold that money in the reserve fund to let everyone know that, in a time where we're cutting our departments and level funding others, that a 19% increase is just too much.
Mr. Chairman, may I comment on that, please? Last year, as you might recall, at Springtown meeting, we did vote to level fund, and the other, and admittedly, it wasn't that big of an increase, and I wasn't overly supportive of that. But are they going to come in here and explain a 19% increase? Because it's my understanding that they had some excess.
They were here, excuse me, let me stop you there. They were actually here Saturday, when we were breaking up. They got here about 5 minutes to 10, and we had already adjourned, so they will be coming back.
Okay. Because 19% is really, really high. And don't get me wrong, I think they're doing a wonderful job, but when we can't put textbooks in the kids in the Wareham public schools, there's got to be some resolution to this. Because next year it'll be 25%.
Just so you understand, everybody, that the money being put into reserve, which we didn't do last year, it puts it there, so if we end up being the only of the 5 communities that votes against it, the actual increase, we still have to pay it. So
Right.
that way, by putting this money in reserve, we have it available at the time.
Yeah, no, it's a smart move. I just,
So I'm sure everybody understands why.
okay.
Just with regard to that, regarding the budget for the Upper Cape, we all did get an email of a press release about the budget. I actually attempted to get a hard copy of the budget that's going to be discussed at the district meeting, if you will, their school committee meeting this Thursday, and was told that because the subcommittee for the budget that they've established has not yet turned the budget over to the school committee, notwithstanding that apparently they're going to see it for the first time on Thursday night and yet vote on it the same night. Personally, I'm thinking of going down there and making my reservations known, at least individually, about this process. I can't believe that you would be presented with a budget in one night and vote on it that same night. That just frankly boggles my mind. I think we need to find out a little bit more about this process. I think all 5 towns need to find out a little bit more about this process, and I look forward to working with our other towns to try to see what's going on here.
Mr. Chairman, there are elected people to that school board. From Wareham elects 2 people. Is it possible for us to have them?
They were here on Saturday. I'll say it again.
No, that
Just
was
so that I'm clear. They were here on Saturday. However, they showed up 5 minutes. I knew they were trying to get here before 10 o'clock. The meeting had already adjourned, and they are scheduled to come back and talk with the Board of Selectmen.
right. I understand. I saw Mr. Dutch. I'm talking about the elected.
The Mr.
Fitchmeyer.
Now, I always get his name messed up. Bob Fitchenmeister
Meyer.
was here as well, our elected official to that board on Saturday morning. They were a few minutes late, and they will be coming back.
Okay.
He is our elected official. Mr. Sullivan, please.
To continue on, one of the other changes you'll see is with regards to the police and IT department. The police have an IT staff member that I'm moving back to Town Hall to be under our IT director so that there's a full-time staff member in there. And I'll delete the part-time position that we had in there. This is what I think is one of the most efficient ways to help that office and make sure that if we have any issues, we have 2 competent people in there willing and ready. Those were the major. The 2 other were the veteran services. It looks like our assessment's going to go up to approximately $290,000 from what we believed in December, and that's from 275 $290,000, and we've had to take from other departments in order to fund that. That's not one you can unfund. Part of that's something that we're really going to have to go over is whether this year we fund some of the items like the recycling department on there. It's a small amount of money, but I believe last year it was up to $8,000 and we'd budgeted for $5,000. Right now I don't have them in this budget. And it's not a statement of the work that they do or the effort that they put in there. It's a statement of where our finances are.
Is the only consolidation, if you will, that you're considering to this point, moving an IT person from the police department to town hall?
Right now, that's one of them. We're also looking to have the finance director that will create the finance department with better efficiencies and such in there. There's some of the other departments that I'm looking at. We're also looking, there are potentials of retirements in there. Some people might be seeking to retire, and when that happens, there'll be adjustments to those departments, but that's probably the most economical way to do it on there. When somebody leaves, I would rather than the layoffs. This budget holds about 3 less positions than we had last year, and there's some upcoming that I believe altogether we'll have several less.
I think one of the discussions that took place on Saturday, and I know that I've had this discussion probably a couple times with you, mostly with the public safety officials, is consolidation of our own departments, i.e. the police department, you have emergency services, harbor master. You have 3 silos of expenses there, and quite frankly, I think that, my opinion is that, the town would be better served by having all those departments under one silo, so that we're not expending 3 sets of billing, 3 sets of resources, buildings that we're maintaining. And so, I know that I've mentioned that to you. I know that, I've spoke with, I think, both chiefs about that at some point. And you can see that the commentary is coming from public safety about trying to consolidate these silos, where I think we have some expenses there. I'm not talking about people necessarily, but we do have expenses that we're spending money on buildings and things that we really don't need to if they were under one control. And I think that there's definitely some efficiencies that can be gained out of some of those departments. I won't get on my soapbox about those 2 departments. But clearly, there are efficiencies, I think, that can be looked at.
Mr. Chairman, the Capital Planning Committee about 2.5 years ago now, Mr. Slavin, 3? It's been that long. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yes, it is.
And I don't believe Mr. Sullivan was here at that time. They did a lot of research on the merging of the EMS, and it might be an interesting thing to revisit, because they actually looked at and Mr. Slavin can explain it a lot better than I can, but they looked at personnel and staffing and overtime costs, and when they discussed it, their intent was to merge it with the fire, because most firefighters are a minimum. What's the minimum, Mr. Slavin? EMT?
Yeah, EMT.
But many of them are actually paramedics. So overall, between the district budget and the town budget could, but it's a great thing just to look at and to see. There were some.
Yeah, I didn't bring it up for discussion in detail because it's not really part of the agenda. But I know that I was just asking at this point in time if that's, you talked about the IT person, right?
Right.
And I was just wondering if you had others. I know you've been talking about the finance position, right? And I didn't know if you've gotten this far down the road yet to look at some of these other departments.
I haven't given
Okay.
it. It's
But you would look at some of these other issues before town meeting. Is that what you're saying to us?
this is so people understand. I'm actually seeking guidance from the board.
Oh,
and
good. We
right
just gave
here.
you some.
Yeah, so and I appreciate that. One of the things.
If you have issues trying to figure out how to see 6 steps down the road, just give me a call. I have all that drawn out on a map.
Okay. And I appreciate that, and we'll be looking for, as we do it through this budget process. There's some changes, such as the merging of departments are a charter change on there, which will require separate articles and such. But I would
Even
think
for something as simple as that, Alan?
Yes.
It's a
Do we
reorganization.
have to have an article for the police move?
For the what?
Not for the police. For the
For
police,
the IT person moving to town hall?
no, because he's staying in the same job, but just moving it over. But as far as, that's not a reorganization of the department. All it is the IT person
Right.
was there, it's just moved over. He
Still an IT person.
still stays. It's just where he's being
Just
billed out of.
Reports to a different, is he gonna report to Matt?
yes.
Yes.
So he'd be reporting to a different person.
He ends up
So if
reporting
you
to Matt
moved
anyways.
If you move, for example, an EMT, if you move the EMTs under the police,
It'd be a reorganization because it's a legitimate department. You're taking and moving it, combining it.
department to department, okay, I got
Because
it.
what you're doing is the EMS department would be under the police department, so it wouldn't exist as a separate entity anymore.
So then, for more, I won't call it drastic, because to me, it's not even drastic, to me, it fits perfect.
It just,
It is an issue now, that, we could look at that for November maybe.
Yeah.
right?
That would be the next step on there, would have to be.
Yeah, good. I like that.
Well,
Peter?
with that, not to jump into the next conversation here that he's going to bring up, I'm sure, but the reason the finance director is on the warrant is because we're going to need town meeting to approve that change in order to sort of merge departments under one umbrella, create a reorganization. So that's the reasoning for that.
Yeah, and the other thing we talked about on Saturday, right on that same subject, you want some direction, right? We talked about the I think it was $88,000 for the maintenance gasoline system, right? Mm-hmm. And when I asked the question, how many gasoline stations do we have? They said 2. Not true. In the town of Wareham, we have 4, not 2. We have one in Wareham District, we have one in Onset, we have one at the police department, and we have one in maintenance. Right?
Yep, we have 4.
So when I asked the question, see, the answer I got back was 2. When follow up on the statement I made earlier tonight, we're not focused on the town of Wareham most of the time with these questions. We're focused on your budget and the town budget. But we own 4 gas stations. And part of my reasoning for supporting that was, okay, if we're going to invest in the maintenance site, then that's the site we invest in. And then when the police site goes down, right, we're not going to give the chief $100,000 to fix his. We're going to have his officers go a half a mile up the street and put gas in the car. That was my philosophy behind supporting that. So we don't need all these gas stations. There's expenses that we have that we can get rid of. And we can have one gas station that's better than 2, right? So if you want some guidance, I think I'm giving you plenty right now. Right? I mean, these are things you have to look at. It's not always about, when you say, people say you have to cut expenses. It's not always about people. It's about things. That we don't need 4 gas stations. I understand the need to have one in Onset, and a setup in Onset, not because I live there, but because Onset is an island, and you can be cut off from Wareham if you're in Onset in the storms, right? You're laughing, but it's true. And so you do have to have some kind of a backup in Onset to deal with issues. Let's put it that way, but. We can reduce some of these things that we have that we don't really need 4 of or 5 of and concentrate on what we do need.
Just to explain a little easier, we have 4 gassing facilities in the town of Wareham overall. Unfortunately, the way we are set up as a town, which in places in the Cape, but some of them are worse than us, with multiple fire districts, many as 10, we have separate entities that they are a separate entity, and the bills are paid separately, et cetera. So technically, the town of Wareham government here, we have 2. The government, which is the district, fire and water district, has 1, and Onset Fire and Water District has 1.
But
could
Alan, with all due respect, though,
we could do something.
The money for those 4 gas stations come out of a Wareham taxpayer's pocket.
From different areas. All I'm trying to get at is that in order to make one facility, you'd have to come up with a working arrangement with 3 entities.
Right.
And it's not that simple to do, unfortunately.
Well, I think it's worth the work in the end, because the customer is the citizen in the town of Wareham who's paying those tax dollars to the districts in the town.
It's an interesting thing,
right?
Yeah,
it's an interesting
we're
thing.
agreeing with it. It's just something.
Yeah,
we're going off the reservation because we don't have it in there.
I'm not saying it's easy.
No,
I'm just saying it has to be looked at.
We have to at least make the outreach
on
to the districts,
right?
And get to that. You made the comment that. We, as in the people of Wareham, own 4 gas stations. The interesting thing is you own a piece of 3 gas stations. I own a piece of 3 gas stations, but they're not the same gas stations.
Right.
So that's, that kind of illustrates what the issue is. And, gas stations may not, you may want some redundancy in a town that's subject to serious storms like we are with the gas stations, but there's got to be some other things here that we can look at and try to work with the fire districts.
All I'm saying is, you put this stuff out there on the table for discussion. Yeah. And if we're making an effort to consolidate things on the town side, and you have the leaders of the district sitting here in front of you telling you that hey, you know what? We need to work closer together and more collaboration together, because between us we have great resources, right? We're saying the same thing. I think there hasn't been a time in history, at least in this town, where you've had this level of discussion. So I think we're on a good track, and if we can show a good example and continue to work in relationship, that we're going to be able to collaborate on some things, which is going to save Mr. Sullivan's town some money.
Yeah.
How's
Well,
that?
the interesting thing is, in that regard, the blizzard in some ways I think was a godsend, because it got us involved on a personal level with the personnel in the districts, which really we hadn't done that much before, frankly. So I think it was a good thing.
I think it's good.
Why don't we just make a note that somewhere down the line, not too far in the future, we put together an agenda article to bring this up, because we have the things we're discussing that we're giving Mr. Sullivan some guidance on. Some of the stuff really can't be done unless we have, multiple pieces working in one unit. So to make life simple, why don't we just put it all on the table, through it a proper agenda item, because it's quite involved. The ideas of, putting EMS, police and stuff to discuss. It's not that quite
We're
that
not
simple.
discussing it.
We're not discussing. We're just
We're just
putting it
bringing
out there.
up. He asked for some guidance and some opinions. We're not discussing it.
We'll just put it on the agenda. We'll get through it.
It'll be on the agenda, but
Next-
we're not discussing it, to be
Okay.
clear.
Next item. We're good.
Mr. Slavin.
Next item.
And I want anybody coming in here next week telling us we broke the meeting law because you said we were discussing it. I want to be very clear that we're not. Mr. Sullivan.
So
Oh,
the-
I know what the other thing was. On the parking meters, the kiosk,
Correct.
right? I think I sent you a picture. Did I
Yeah,
send you that picture last week
Yes, you
of the
did.
kiosk? And there was a lady who was walking up and down the street with a bag over her shoulder, and she was the one checking all the dashboards to make sure that they had a ticket on the dashboard. And she was issuing citations to those cars.
It's a good system.
So that's revenue that was coming in. Not only did they get the revenue from the people who did put the ticket, right? They got revenue from that lady being there. So, well, what do you have planned on the parking issue?
We have 2 suppliers right now giving us quotes on them. We know that there was the community events had looked into giving some monies to donate to purchase
Yeah.
those.
Take that back a second. It was the harbor master who was here asking about the
Harbor Master also has his own on there, his own article. If community events was unable to fund it, the Harbor Master would be doing it. So I would need a 3rd quote on meters as well for procurement laws.
It's okay. That's what it is.
because we didn't end up really discussing that because we wanted to hear from you.
On the Harbor Master's key.
buying
Yeah.
parking meters.
Yep. So we can get to the. Do we want? That's another article. You want to go? Should we go over that now?
I just want to make sure you cover it
Yeah.
because we did put that off until
Okay.
you were here.
Yeah. One of the things. The Harbor Master's article for the kiosks, I believe, is for kiosks on the pier itself. We had another organization, community events, that had looked into purchasing some kiosks. I think I've sent out a memo today regarding some of the community events and such. The only problem with the Harbor Master, well, the problem with having the Harbor Master, us doing it through the Springtown meeting, is that doesn't get enacted to July 1, and we'll miss the spring. Right now, it looks like we can get kiosks in there somewhere around May 15th to June 1st, have them shipped over and installed. Some of the manufacturers are in Germany, and those are some of the ones with the solar power on the top, so that we're not connecting to them. Yeah.
I think that's the one I sent you a picture at that
Yeah.
panel, right?
Yeah.
On the top of it.
Yeah, if you can't get sun on the pier, then I don't
That's
know
a
where
problem.
you can get enough sun. So that would be the problem with the harbor master's part. There's two things. We need a true opinion as to whether the funds being sought can actually purchase that item for the pier. And I know there was also a request that the revenues being brought in by that kiosk, part of that be earmarked for whether it was the pier itself, because at some point that it will need something on there. So
Yeah, there was a bunch of questions on that, and that's why we held for you to
Yeah.
find out what your plan was.
Right. So realistically, to be blunt, one of the things was to have that as a backup article, because I think, I have to be blunt, every year I feel like we're losing revenue down there. And at some point, if it's not through the committee I spoke about, well, we have to get this done, because I think it's penny wise and pound foolish not to do it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Winslow.
Were you going to say something, Mr. Slavin?
I just want to ask the question that this is going, you're asking us to put this on the warrant with the idea it might be pulled.
Correct. It may not make it to the actual town meeting if there's no need for it.
Or if we can't do it.
Or we can't end up doing it. But I think we have it on there for the safety measure, and make sure that if we're going to go forward, and that's the way we're going to be able to fund it, we have it there.
The correct term would be a placeholder for now.
A what?
Placeholder. I can deal with that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This is the same question I've been asking about this since the conversation started back in 2010. When are we going to sit down with the Community Events Committee and address the special legislation? That's also going to have to go through town meeting, because a percentage of those funds goes into their account, and some of the estimates that we've seen.
We got the question. Mr. Sullivan, answer.
It was brought to our attention that in the special act itself, it said for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2007, ending June 30th, 2008. That's of concern, because that means only 1 year. I had town council write an opinion about that, which I sent to the chair of the Community Events Committee, as well as our chairman and the Board of Selectmen liaison today. And the belief is that we should not be funding them anymore. It was 1 year of just seed money.
Right. Is there a follow-up question?
Yeah, but I'm floored.
Did you not get the email?
I did not get the email, Mr. Chair.
I did not, and I apologize, I did not send it to the whole board. I sent it to the chair,
Oh.
to the liaison, and to the chair of the community events on there.
Well, I mean, this is not anything new. This has been an issue for quite some time, that we're just trying to get it cleared up.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make sure that we're not putting the cart before the horse. But now that brings up a whole new set of problems. But that's not on the agenda, so.
No.
Mr. Chair, can we get that on the agenda for next week?
When
'Cause
Mr. Sullivan is ready to discuss it, yes. And I think Rich is back next week as well, right?
Rich is back the 17th. Community events, I believe, meets on the 18th, so the next time we meet on the 19th, as the representative, I should have some answers for you.
Okay. And if you need to sit with Rich and Derek before their next meeting, feel free to do. Well, as long as there's not an issue with the board members, feel free to do that.
Okay.
So that you can carry the message forward.
Will do.
In the proper manner.
That would have covered Article 12 there. I'll ask that we go back to Article.
And just to clarify, once again, I don't want people to be running around the town saying, "Oh, we're going to get rid of the Community Events Committee." It's not the purpose of the discussion. The purpose of the discussion is to right or wrong and then decide what we do moving forward. Because obviously, if they have all this money, the town has the ability to continue to fund that group, but I think to more proper levels. And Mr. Sullivan will get back to us with his recommendations on that. Right?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Article 8 is the Upper Cape Cod Tech School District, their creation of a stabilization fund. So that's obviously one they will have to bring forward. The one thing I think we need to consider on this is the purpose of their creating a stabilization fund is to create a wastewater facility on their site. They will need that stabilization fund in order to go out to bond to create that facility. The cost of that will be passed on to the members' communities. So this is not just for them to create a stabilization fund. This is potentially something that could have a 20, 30-year assessment to the towns and needs to be considered strongly.
And further in that regard, Mr. Chairman, I do intend to attend the Upper Cape School Committee budget meeting, where I assume that it will be possible to also ask about this and to see if I can get some information for the board regarding the long-term and short-term ramifications to us.
My comment on this is something the town of Wareham cannot afford, and I would be more apt not to put this even on the warrant.
Mr. Chair.
What are the ramifications, Alan, if we do that? And then the other communities vote,
Well,
and we haven't done this.
I'm not sure whether that follows, because this is not part of the educational thing that we're doing is with our contract. They're asking for something outside the actual running of the school.
I agree with you. I have no problem taking that off.
Having a separate sewer system, in my opinion, is not part of what a school function is.
Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Winslow?
I asked Mr. Bowen, Attorney Bowen, about this last Tuesday because I echo the concerns of my colleagues. This isn't something that we can afford. We don't have a stabilization fund for our own schools. But he was unclear because of it being Upper Cape Tech if we could remove it. So it may be better to leave it as a placeholder and get his advice before we. He said that he wasn't sure. He was going to look at it, but he is out of town. So
I'm not sure either. I just have a hard time putting this on.
I do too.
It's not fair to the citizens of this town.
And I couldn't agree with you more, but I also don't want us to.
I have no problem either way. I have no problem taking it off. What's the worst they can do to you? Make you put it on in November, right?
Basically.
Or make us call a special town meeting because their budget year starts July 1.
I doubt it. It's just the stabilization fund.
Yeah, I don't think they have the authority, or they'd have to go get a court order to make us do that, and I don't see a court getting involved in this argument.
No, but that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the worst that can happen is we leave
whatever
it.
You guys want to do with it.
And
I'm not in favor of it.
And we pull it.
I have no problem either way.
I think it's time that, again, you don't have to follow my thought, but I think it's time we basically take a stand and say this is enough. We just can't do this. We're going to have a discussion very shortly when Derek continues. If you read his first page of it, what he supplied us, and we'll get to it shortly, about having some shortfalls, and we have to give him some guidance and policy. And those guidances and policies are not going to be pleasant to hear.
Right.
So at this point here, I think it's time
we
say
just
no.
have all this money to blow on another school district.
So
my it's almost an issue where we should be eagerly seeking an exit strategy. If it's possible to exit a district, that's one that we may want to start looking at, because this district is getting way too expensive for us to maintain.
Mr. Chair, one of the interesting things is with these vocational setups is if today we were part of the district and they had a capital assessment, so they put out a $3 million bond. If we left tomorrow, we would still be responsible for the rest of the years of that bond.
Yeah.
Because we were there when they signed it?
Correct.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It might be time to start looking to run for the hills now.
Scoot now before that for sewer facility.
We
Facility
really
comes in,
need to
yeah.
look at this because these numbers are getting astronomical. Hey, 19%, 20%, like it's nothing, like it's 10 cents. And we're telling our school system, you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have this. Telling police, hey, try to save those guns until next year. That's the only thing protecting you. But hey, see if you get another year out of them. Well, the criminals are running down the street, right? And we're funding a district that we can't afford. So maybe we should be asking Mr. Bone how to get us out of that before all this stuff is signed for. Go ahead, Mr. Sullivan.
The next item would be Article 9. That's an annual one for the funding of the water pollution control facility.
Before we start, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do we want to go ahead and vote not to put this article up or not, since I made the request?
Hey, I don't care either way. If you want to leave it and then cut it after or just cut it now, it's fine with me.
I'll make the motion that we do not bring the article forward.
Second.
Say it again.
Do not bring this article forward.
Article 8?
Yep.
All right. Motion made and seconded by Mr. Titterbaum. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 4-0-0.
Thank you.
Was there another one, Derek, you just asked us to pull as well? Or did you say you needed to keep it there?
No, we had a placeholder on there.
For the parking?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Proceed.
So we have number 9, which is the water pollution control facility. That is the annual article for
Right.
their budget. The budget numbers are listed in the budget document, which is
No. I'm sorry, Mr. Sullivan. I don't believe Mr. Campina did not present his
All right.
budget on Saturday.
So on that, for the water pollution control facility, as you see the way it's marked in the budget document, the projected revenue is $6,956,540, and of that we would have the revenue offset of $583,000, and the rest of the expenditures to them $6,373,540. I have the simple budget document here, and not the breakdown of salary and expenditures, but that's in the blue books that you have, that's in there, and that amount has not changed.
Okay.
And the next item that we have on here is number 12. We have gone over that. Number 13 is to see if the town will transfer a sum of $18,500 from the waterway accounts to the harbor master's maintenance and improvement account. Was this one, I see it on the list as not being spoken about, but Gary was there to present this one, or?
Right.
Oh. Yeah, I think it's just the kiosk. Okay, so 13. 14 is the revolving accounts that we do every year. If you see in the updated budget document, it's not everything listed in there. That will be a handout as we do every year. One of the reasons is, to be blunt, it saves on a full page of printing and putting out there for something that we have every year. So Article 15 is probably the one that the board would like to have questions about. This is to appropriate a sum of $397,000 for the purpose of purchasing print and/or digital textbooks, in addition to fund school technology infrastructure, and that's to authorize the treasurer. So the breakout would be $350,000 for textbooks, $47,000 for the technology, which is the continuing of the wireless infrastructure and completion for the schools. This was inserted by the town administrator when speaking with the schools and working with them. These are items that we can borrow for. So basically, for what would amount to about $70,000, maybe $80,000 a year in borrowing, it would give us a value of close to $400,000 in the budgets this year.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, through you,
Yes, Mr. Titlebaum, please go ahead.
I guess my question is, during last summer's discussion about the overrides, we heard from the school committee looking for support for their override article for textbooks. Unfortunately, I don't remember the amount they were seeking then, so I don't know if this is the same amount or a similar amount. At that time, it was explained to us that they needed new textbooks to comply with new state standards. Is this the same information, again, that you've received from them in your discussions with the school committee?
Yeah, I can't say as of right now if it was the exact same amount, but
Right.
these are what they need for going forward on there, and I do on a level where I think things are going, I would believe if they could do digital textbooks, it's one of the best ways if that's what's being adopted out there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Slavin, do you have any comments or questions on that matter?
On this?
No, on the textbooks, the article that Derek just presented.
No, the only question I have is on the borrowing. We have funds in place going into the future that we would cover this?
Yes, I have that put in the FY14 budget, and one of the things we've done is we're no longer funding Tremont Nail and Bryant Farm as part of our annual budget. In the past, we've done this to make sure that was covered in case town meeting voted down those appropriations. That is not necessary.
Okay, that's my only concern. Thank you.
The only question that I have, Mr. Sullivan, on this issue is this article going to bring us into the digital textbooks? Because it was my understanding that the difference between the cost of the textbooks, we would need an upgrade in technology, which is going to cost roughly $40,000, but wouldn't that save us money over the long term instead of buying paper textbooks and having to replace them? And is this a conversation you've had with the superintendent?
We've spoken about which ones they are. I can't tell you for certain that they definitely will be that, but I'm sure.
I think we're going to need to know that information going into town meeting. There's a lot of talk about the digital textbooks, so I know it's going to be of interest to many people. Go ahead, Mr. Slavin.
Madam Chair, can we go back to the previous one that I asked not to put on the warrant? Can we ask the moderator to come up for a minute?
Certainly, Madam Moderator.
If you'll indulge me for just a few minutes.
Anything for you, Mr. Slavin.
Thank you. On the, we had talked a little earlier about this particular issue, and it was stated before that town council had stated previously that the Board of Selectmen through, I think you said state, had the right not to put something on the warrant if it was financially not there.
Have jurisdiction over their town warrant.
Correct.
However, what you do is also governed by each individual town charter or town bylaw. So you also have to look at what's in your charter and what's in your bylaw. And if you go to the town charter, section 2-4 of town meeting warrants, there is a provision. And I'll read it, because I don't know if you all have copies. And then why I raised the issue with the chairman as he went out, because you might want to think about what you just did. And I'm not an attorney and I'm not advising you, but in our charter it says the initiation of warrant articles. The Board of Selectmen shall receive all petitions which are addressed to it in which request the submission of a particular subject matter to the town meeting in which is filed by, and number 1, any multiple member body acting by a majority of its full membership. So although you might have jurisdiction of not accepting town department warrant articles and tossing them out because they're not a multiple member body, in our charter it does say if a multiple member body files a request, then you should submit them. So I'm not an attorney, so I don't know if that pertains to the Upper Cape being a school committee, which is a multiple member body who took a vote to ask that this board submit this article. I think, and I know, and I've been asking and doing a little bit of research on districts, and actually, this Saturday, Kathleen Caleri from the Department of Municipal Finance is going to be the guest speaker at our Mass Moderators meeting here at the Wareham Library. So I've been doing a little homework because I have some questions relative to Upper Cape districts and putting items such as the stabilization fund on town warrants. Does it require the act of all 5 towns to do it? And there is a provision, if you look under vocational school districts, that allows them under one section to do construction, to build sewer treatment plants, and to do capital projects. But then it sends you to another chapter which says in order to do that, they have to submit a ballot question to the towns, and they have to pay for that ballot question. So I think there's a lot of questions about this, but just not putting it on, I'm not sure if that's a wise thing to do or whether you should just leave it until town council comes back, because if you leave it as a placeholder, even though you close the warrant, your motion on the floor can always be indefinite postponement or a negative vote. I mean, your recommendation to the body and give you reasons why. And then, I mean, obviously it will be up to the body to vote that. You're taking a risk. Either way, if you leave it on and the body decides, hey, we want to do a stabilization fund, you've got to sit here and think about this, but because the charter, and I only raise it because I want you to be aware of that it is in the charter, and that's obviously your decision, that it says any multiple member body, but I don't know if that pertains to town committees.
Understand. We've had this discussion already.
Yeah, I would guess that the charter didn't anticipate external committees.
Exactly.
And therefore you don't see any limiting language in here.
Right.
And if, you know how the law works, if it's not specifically excluded, then it's included. So you may be onto something here. Well,
the other piece also is.
Well, I think we stated pretty clearly what we thought of it, but.
I mean, in good conscience, I couldn't just sit back there and not just bring this to your attention and let you discuss it. It's obviously you're in charge of the warrant. It's your decision. But I would have felt very badly if I just didn't raise it. I think it raises a lot of questions about where does it go on everybody's warrant? How does it get there? What kind of hearings have they had? I mean, there's a lot of questions I have, and I'm going to ask Kathleen Caleri. How do districts come into the towns and do capital items? Because in our own town, those capital items have to come before us for a vote.
Well, I think the solution here, Mr. Chairman, is to take 2 votes on this. With her concerns, I think 1 vote can be to rescind our prior vote, and to put it on the warrant, the second vote can be a favorable action vote. And then that way, we cover the scenario she's talking about, where we might be stuck with it anyway, or find ourselves not being able to participate in the process somehow. And at the same time, we've made it clear that we're not necessarily thrilled about the idea of going to the taxpayers to build a sewer facility at the Vogue School.
I think what we can do, if it works for everybody, is for me to ask for reconsideration due to new information, which we can then vote again on my motion. We can vote it down, and then we can just go ahead.
Yeah, one other thought I had, and I don't know, maybe the town administrator can answer it. You could not put it on the annual, but could it go on the special, which doesn't close until the 15th, and that, Rich still wouldn't be back, would he?
No. I mean, there is one other loophole, and I don't like using loopholes. It says that we have to have I think we have a selectmen's policy that says when we get something like this in, we're supposed to get something like a certified report of the vote of the actual committee given to our town clerk. That was never done. So on a technicality, we have the right to refuse putting the ballot under that, but I don't want to play those kind of games. That's not the way I like to do things. I just did it with the idea that when I asked the question before was that town council had ruled that the board did have the right not to put things in the warrant if they thought it was undue financial hardship to the town. And that's what I made my decision on. But at this point here, I'd like to just go for reconsideration go back, vote on my motion, and then go back. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman. Finish it? Oh. Well, that was, so this is similar to what I was trying to say earlier, and that was that Attorney Bowen thought that there may be an issue because they're a district and because of some of what Madam Moderator brought up. But in truth, an article like this does belong on the special and not the annual. So I would say that the thing for us to do is to put it on the special. Because this is, if I understand it correctly, and I could be wrong because Rich was sitting next to me and there was a meeting going on, this has to go first to town meeting. It has to be voted by the majority of the member towns, and then it goes to the ballot. So it's actually a two-part process, but the annual town meeting is for the budget. It's for, moving the money into the revolving funds, and I would think that this request would be something that would be more appropriate on the special. Because it's not part of the annual budget.
No, it's not.
It's not a request for borrowing.
Not yet.
Not yet. This is what I'm trying to say. So it would seem to me that the clean way to do it would be to vote to put the request on the special.
Well, then we wouldn't have to vote to rescind our prior vote because
Correct.
we're actually moving it off. Right now it's in limbo. We can move it somewhere.
Well, we took it off the annual for different reasons, but I think, in my opinion, that was actually the appropriate thing to do because it really belongs on the special. Do you disagree with me, Madam Moderator? Go ahead. You can do it on TV.
It's your turn.
No, yeah.
It's your turn now.
Does it say hot seat?
You brought it up.
Well, I mean, in good conscience, I couldn't sit back there and just not bring, where it did say multiple member body, and I don't, and as Selectman Titlebaum stated that when the charter was written, we're not a member of the Upper Cape Vogue Regional Committee, so probably you have some merit to what you said, that they weren't anticipating that, but we are, and they are a multiple member body. I think Selectman Winslow raises a point, but I would have to defer to the town administrator. Hot seat just shifted. I mean, I think she's right. If you look at our charter is for budget articles and our traditional business that has to be done on behalf of the town, and then other things are put off until the fall. That may be a valid point. Like I said, I'm not an attorney. I don't study law. I've tried to learn as I go about municipal financing. There's a lot to learn, but I'm not the expert.
Madam Chair, I think that works. It sounds, I could go along with that. We've removed it from the
Annual.
the regular town meeting, right?
It's not regular business.
And we could move it to the special.
Correct.
And then, I mean, it's not like it's going to happen in the next week.
So
between now and town meeting, Rich will have ample time to give us his decision, and then we can pull it or vote no action when we get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd make a motion that we move Article, what was the number? If you get it right in front of you. Article 8 to the special town meeting and include
Well,
it
you
there.
already voted to take it off, so it's not even there anymore.
The special.
No.
I know the verbiage of Article 8.
So I think simply I can add it to the special town meeting warrant, and then when we
Right.
vote on them. So I don't think we need another action
No.
on that.
I think it's a directive to the town administrator.
All right. We don't need to vote to ask him to do that.
You can if you want to, but you don't have to if there's
Okay.
a consensus of the board
That's fine with me. That's
to-
one less vote
to
we have
direct
take.
him.
Perfect.
And I do have, that is one of my questions that I have as a moderator to Kathleen Caleri this weekend to try to get some clarification for my purposes as the moderator, so I understand how that
I'm
all
sorry.
happens.
Madam Chair, through you. Who is Kathy?
She is the chief of the Municipal Finance Law Division. So she answers all the questions with regard to municipal law financing. She is coming this Saturday to Wareham to speak to the Southeast Mass moderators. We will be talking about financial implications of warrant articles and how they should be written and the appropriateness of the language in them.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that I can tape it, and if so, I think it would be something great to share.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank
Mr.
you very
Chair,
much.
I'm turning it back over to you.
Madam Moderator, here's your paper. I don't want you to get home and find pages missing out of your book. Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Thank you.
Sullivan?
The
back
next
to
one
you.
is listed on as Article 20, to see if the town will vote to appropriate some money from the Transportation Revolving Fund to purchase or lease new and/or used vehicles for the school transportation department. That's really one that should be addressed by the school. What they're asking is their transportation revolving account that they have, if they have funds left over at the end of the year, would like to earmark a certain amount to purchase what they've listed there. And
I have one question, which I've always wondered about as far as the transportation. I've always been under the assumption that, which is not a good word to use sometimes, that the school buses themselves, the actual buses, not the running of the buses, but at least the purchasing of the buses, etc., is a non-net spending, which is really the town's responsibility.
it does fall under the non-net, meaning that we do not receive credit for those funds.
And
on
basically,
there.
and the town actually comes out of the town side budget. Normally, this is coming out of their
Revolve.
transportation revolver account. I just have a question of whether or not, it's been done before, but whether or not it's supposed to be really done that way as far as purchasing a bus out of there. I know they've done it. I'm not trying to make it difficult, but it's just something where I've always wondered why.
Yeah, I think the school could probably be better on that. But if I went from the simple view of it, I would say that the revolving fund is part of the non-net line and is earning during that, so that's not part of the net school spending. So I think it's almost keeping within the I don't think faith is a word, but within the view of how it's supposed to be. But I think that's something we should probably answer and look into, because I've come up with some solutions that haven't passed muster before.
Yeah, the only reason why I bring it up is because it says least new and/or used. If it was used and they were under a certain value, I wouldn't have any problem with it per se, because it's not a capital item. But where it's new, any vehicle new is a capital item.
New and/or over $25,000.
$1,000. So I just.
And is there a cap on this article? In terms of dollar?
No, not right now.
Not. They would probably put
They
one
would
in
put
their
it in there.
motion.
When it gets to the town meeting. I don't have a problem per se, it's just the procedure I'm kind of questioning, and I'm just kind of questioning where it says least new, whether we get into the issue of capital, and a capital purchase really should be coming through the town administrator in the capital budget.
And just one thing I wanted to establish on there is one of the reasons we don't put money on a lot of these articles is we don't know, or it's changing. And if you put a dollar figure on there, you're really beholden to that. Maybe a slight change if the moderator's feeling kind that night.
They will see a number, like a not to exceed type number, when we get to town meeting.
Mr. Chair, are the numbers going to be printed in the warrant, or are you planning to put them in the motions again?
The actual numbers, probably most of them will be in the warrant. However, when the Finance Committee has their book of recommendations with the information on there, that's really where you get most of your numbers. The printing of the warrant is really just a warning to the town that these items are going to be on there. So when you print in the paper, so it's...
I understand that, but in the past, most of the numbers have been in there, and people have had the opportunity when at the time of their warning to review that, and it's very confusing to have blank numbers in a warrant and numbers in a motion, and people don't know what that's going to be in advance. It's becoming very frustrating to people. I get a lot of complaints about it.
And I can understand that, but the simplest answer I can say to it is this whole budget process is fluid and in motion, and we lock ourselves in if we put it in there, and we can do harm to the finances by printing that. And I can understand the frustrations, but I don't think that's the best method on there.
It's just one of those things you have to keep open.
Yes.
Okay. Next.
The next item on there is the finance director reorganization. I think the numbers have changed on this because this document from when you spoke about it last, the free cash transfer to the health trust fund was moved to the special, because that's supposed to be on the special town meeting, and that's where it was requested to be because it's a this year item. If you did a free cash transfer at the annual, technically it's already too late. You don't have free cash. So that one's not on there. So it's now listed on this document for the finance director, article number 22. See if the town will vote pursuant to Section 6-3 of the Charter to approve the reorganization plan, which creates a finance department by restructuring the accounting and treasurer/collector departments and any other Wareham finance and technology department by placing them under the direction of a finance director. Today, and believe me, it's much too late for the meeting, but earlier today I had emailed a finance director job description. I do have it printed up. I know it's not what you're looking for at this late of a time for putting it on the warrant, but realistically, I know we've spoken about this. I think it's something for the town for going through closing our books, for making sure that the financial stability of the town, we have somebody overseeing that besides just the town administrator, having 3 department heads going up to them. I think 1 department head of a finance director overseeing them establishes the control that we've really been lacking over the last few years. We've sought out town accountants that were supposed to be the finance directors on there per the personnel plan, and it hasn't worked out. I see our town accountants as being people in the office working, putting the numbers in there, and having somebody over them, making sure that what we're looking to do, the monthly cash reconciliations and such, what the DOR's recommended, what our auditors have recommended is getting accomplished. And I think establishing that is something that's going to benefit the town greatly.
And I think that, you and I spoke briefly today, and I'm sure we'll be speaking at great length over the next several months. But, I think that, we still fall short. I understand that, you're working with the DOR. This is a DOR, one of the recommendations that you've been working with your contacts. But when I still look at Wareham, I still see that you, as the town administrator, are responsible for the entire budget. And a majority of that budget, or close to it, goes to something called your school department, which falls under you. I don't, people can blast me for that if they want. However, when it comes to making decisions about how we fund these two major departments, police and school, you're in the dark. And by having, I'll say it again, a chief financial officer in the town of Wareham that covers both of those issues, I think is the best way to go. It's unfortunate that someone else didn't see it that way, but you know what? That's our first bite at the apple. You're streamlining the finance department, at least for the town side, right? And as I told you, when you have a department head meeting, there should only be 3 or 4 people sitting at that table. Otherwise, you're trying to manage too much, and you don't have time to focus on being the administrator of the town. So I think this is a good first step. We'll take it if that's what we can get right now. But moving forward, we need to do even more of that. So I think that's a good plan for you.
Mr. Chair,
I'll support you on that.
may I ask a question?
Sure.
So, we're going to hire a finance director and a town accountant.
That's a great question. The finance director is an upgrade of a position. The town accountant we will not hire an assistant town accountant because we will not need that position anymore. This is actually, at the end of the day, will not cost us any more for this position.
Well, but, so, I guess this is the part that I'm having a hard time grasping. We're making another chief position, we're filling a chief position, and we're eliminating an Indian.
We are upgrading a position, which you're referring to as a chief position.
Correct?
Right. We are eliminating an Indian, for lack of better words, on there.
I'm just concerned that we're going to end up top heavy. I think it's a great idea to streamline this, but I'm not sure with a qualified finance director that we need the titles. I mean, wouldn't we be better off with 2 accounting clerks as opposed to 1 town accountant, considering the amount of work that goes through that office?
We still have the other member of the accounting office in there. The position that we're advertising for now at the town accountant is roughly $19,000 less than we hired the previous town accountant as well.
That's still a $70,000 a year job.
Correct, down from $95,000, as well as deleting a $32,000 a year position.
Right, but I'm expressing my concerns because what I see happening here is that people that take $70,000 accountant jobs are looking for a level of responsibility that doesn't necessarily equal, the getting in the trenches, doing the daily types of things. And is that all gonna... I think the concept is great. I'm concerned that we're hiring too many high-level managers and not enough people to be, working and getting the daily work done. Those are my concerns. I think the concept is great, but I want to be sure that, you know what they say about where, good intentions.
This new position you're talking about, can you tell us, first off, is this position something that exists currently in the town personnel plan?
Yeah, the finance director does.
It does. Secondly, what is the pay range for that position?
It's $78,600 to $99,600 and some change in there.
Okay, and could you run the numbers again? You're looking to eliminate a $32,000 job in the accounting office.
It might be a little higher, but let's give it a value of $32,000 on there. Also, the previous town accountant level we hired was $95,000. It's now about $19,000 less than that.
Is the notion that you can pay the incoming, whoever this person turns out to be, town accountant, $19,000 less than was previously being paid, is that a direct consequence of the shifting of administrative responsibility to some extent in that office to the new finance director?
It is, because I want the town accountant to be in there with their, for lack of better words, with their hands in the dirt. Getting that, then I think that helps to what you're thinking about on there. I want them in there doing the books, making sure that what's being passed through there is proper. And that's what we need in that department. I didn't need a finance director as a town accountant. I need a town accountant.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
Mr. Slavin.
I'm looking at the job posting for town accountant, which I think our town administrator has already taken into account what Mrs. Winslow is concerned about. I believe the job as posted is not at that high level. There's different levels of an accountant. And a town accountant, you know, we have the title town accountant, but it's like a vice president of the bank. There's multiple layers of vice presidents and banks with different responsibilities. If I read what I have here for the posting for town accountant, it covers what I call a lot of the detailed paperwork in there. It's not just doing analyzing, et cetera. It's actually doing the day-to-day journal entries, et cetera, which is really what I believe he's trying to get at, which the financial officer, which is one step above, will be looking at the overall financial picture and making judgments and decisions on the finance of the town. And therefore, the town accountant's job can be ratcheted down slightly, which is, I think, what's happening here. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what it looks like to me.
Well, Mr. Chair, through you, I appreciate that, Mr. Slavin. So that brings about another concern. We're going to pay somebody $75,000 a year to, I mean, and this is my issue. And my issue isn't with you, Mr. Sullivan, but my issue is overall. It's a great concept, but we're creating a department of highly paid people, and we have to be able to support that going forward. $75,000 a year. What's the minimum qualification in the job posting, Mr. Slavin?
High school graduate, college credits in accounting, 5 years municipal accounting experience, working knowledge of mass general laws regarding finance or any equivalent combination. Special criteria, must have full knowledge of the VADAR system, MCPPO training as well.
So minimum educational qualification is a high school diploma.
Can be with college credits in accounting, but the bottom line is, again,
But there's no degree required. There's no... I just think we need to look at the whole picture of what we're doing. I'm not trying to be critical. I just think we need to overall look at exactly what we're doing. We're creating... I see this financial director as a high-level management position up there with your position, the chief of police, the school superintendent. Top of the food chain. Well, but what I'm saying is when it comes to, you know, the chief is technically one down from him also, but I'm saying these are the people who, you know,
Would it help if I brought forth on there other towns that have finance directors, what their town accountants are making for a similar size budget?
and what the minimum qualifications are, Mr. Sullivan?
Because I think, I guess that's fine on there, but my question is the minimum qualifications.
Well, my issue is that unless we get a well-seasoned previous town accountant, you know, I mean, we could, in theory, get somebody who's been at a clerical level, who's gone to college and taking some accountant classes and has been working in an accountant's office.
I appreciate that, but what you're stating there is that then I would hire that person. Which I will tell you, I would not hire that person. I'm going to hire somebody that's fully functional for that department, for what I believe is the best possible person to fit that. And I'm sorry to overstep. I apologize, but
No, and I'm not suggesting that you would. What I'm saying is that when the ad goes out and the applicants start coming in, you've got a pool of people to pick from. I'm just saying that as we're restructuring this department, I think we need to look at the overall structure, what the job tasks are going to be, and what the appropriate salary ranges are. And if we need to look at other communities to do that, I think that's a great idea.
I'm going to stop this here because I'm getting uncomfortable with this discussion. The suggestions made by my good friend to my right have already been taken into consideration by this town administrator. He's already gone out to other communities and he's already researched that information. And so a lot of things that you're suggesting, I don't know if there's a communication issue here, but it's not. He's already done a lot of this work. So either you haven't seen it, you haven't read it, or you haven't gotten it, or maybe the two of you need to sit down and have a cup of coffee to make Mrs. Winslow comfortable. But he's already done a lot of what you're asking him to do before he presented this to the town.
I'm expressing my concerns, Mr. Chairman.
Well, if you have those concerns, you're just asking him to go to other towns. He's already done that. You're making suggestions that he's already done. So maybe you guys just need to grab a cup of coffee. I would suggest that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't expect him to hire. I would be very disappointed if he hired someone who didn't have the qualifications to work on the job. You can certainly hire somebody with a ton of initials after their name. We just tried that. That didn't work out well. The key ingredient is knowing, from what most accountants tell me, is the key ingredient is knowing municipal finance. That is a divider typically between someone who has all these college degrees and someone who actually knows how to do it. It is a different animal. So I'm going to kind of, if you had any other comments, fine, but I want to stop that conversation till the two of you at least had time to chat. Anything else?
Just quickly, Mr. Chairman, assuming this goes through, Mr. Sullivan, and town meeting approves it, obviously you're going to be looking to hire a position. You're going to be looking to maintain a position as well. And I guess I might as well wrap the accountant position that you're posting in here as well. Do you have plans for maintaining the continuity of the work that's currently being done as you go through this process?
Well, as we're going through the whole process, we currently have somebody in as the acting town accountant. That last week the Schedule A was submitted. I don't think you're here for that announcement on there, which was great on there. You know, everything's still moving forward. That's the office that just brought the IG's department down to have a procurement class for. I think 38 people were supposed to attend. I thought we had 50 or 60. They were
50 there.
Yeah, we had people out in the halls. So it's not. I don't want anybody to think that department is falling apart while we're going through this.
And I know that you've done a lot of work with the DOR and you're getting a lot of suggestions from them. But I think that to think that a finance director is you've listed some of the stuff in here, you know, which involves the entire financial suite, the treasurer, collector, some IT stuff in here, accounting, right, accounts payable, accounts receivable, all that stuff is included in here. So it's not just somebody who enters data into Veda. You're not looking for that. It's somebody that we haven't had here for a long time, and I think it's a position that we desperately need. And it again, we have a town administrator, but you're not our finance director. And unfortunately, right now, that's the job you're going to end up getting pulled into because that's your expertise. But we need you to work on other things. And so, you know, I support you on this. I think that, like anything else, when you go to town meeting, just be prepared to answer a lot of questions.
Oh,
right?
thank
you. And you got time to work on this. Anything else? Is it? You want to go home, Mr. Barrows? You got a few more minutes? It's up to you.
Motion to extend so we can go through this and then also vote to close the warrant.
Second.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Barrows? All right.
We're going to take the vote.
Yes. All in
Yes.
favor?
Yay.
Opposed? Mr. Barrows is in favor as well.
Thank you, Mr. Barrows.
Madam Moderator, you have your hand up. I didn't ask you to come up. You had your hand up. That was a question, right?
You can do it from there.
I already did. What's your question?
I just want to bring to your attention on this article. It does, under our charter, require a public hearing. And there is a process that needs to be followed, so I want you to be aware that you need to take a look at that.
Which article are you talking about?
For the restructuring of town departments.
Right, he's
Yeah,
got that covered.
So,
Yeah, he knows.
and then when you come to town meeting, it's a vote either up or down. There's no amendments to it.
You know that, Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, that was one of the things. At first, we thought it was a simple change of a position, but
Right.
it turned out to be much more. So,
He's on the ball.
the next article, which is listed in our packet as Article 23, is to vote to authorize the creation of a new rental inspection revolving fund for the purpose of funding the costs of a rental housing inspection program, which shall be credited with the receipts of rental inspections and rental violation fines not to exceed $50,000. It is not the fines at $50,000, it is the revolving account at $50,000. This
Sure,
is
Mr.
one.
Ethia wouldn't mind charging a bunch of money, would he?
This is an item that was brought forth by the Board of Health and Mr. Ethier. In looking at it, I thought it had merit and wanted to make sure that we had it on the warrant. One of the things it's been successful in some of the other towns is we have, besides our summer rentals, we have a lot of rentals in the community, and you want to make sure that what people are renting is safe, it's a healthy and clean environment. And this program's really what does it. And I'm looking, you start figuring out, well, you're going to need somebody to be part of this. And they really believe that this can be a self-funded program. And this is part of our whole code inspection. How this would work if this is approved is right now we have a code enforcement agent that's being funded through the CETA grant. We would start the process with that gentleman to start getting this, getting the fees and such and fines put into the revolving account. So essentially we're creating a seed to start this program. I think the Board of Health is really going to have to bring forth what they believe the costs and the fines and such. But you know, for a town to make sure that its residents are renting safe places and such, and that's clean, I think this is something that's really a benefit to the town, which is why I had put it on the warrant, or asked
Very good.
the board to put it on the warrant.
Hey, did you have discussions with Mr. Ethia?
We had
I'm sure
some.
you did, right?
We did have some discussions with Mr. Ethier, some of his board members. I know some
Good.
of his board members brought in from the finance committee before it was put on here.
It looks
That's
like,
a good deal.
yeah, it looks
Look
at,
at that, you know that other gentleman who always,
Mulcair?
he has something, for the demolition?
Mr. Mulcair.
It's too bad that we couldn't set something up like that for demolition.
I think he has an article also.
Yeah, no, but is
Citizen
there a way to
inspection.
set up a fund? You know, we could take penalties from, I don't know, inspectional services or something,
I believe we have
and set up a
did you-
fund.
Did you put in money for demolition through
Yeah,
We're
inspectional
start-
services?
We're starting to cut down on that
Okay.
one.
I
It's
think it was
being-
25,000.
Yeah.
I know we used the most.
But I'm,
Wow.
you know, this is self-funding. As they're out issuing any citations, that
Yeah.
money would go into this fund, right?
Yeah, this should generate a
So
positive flow.
if we looked at
Yeah.
maybe even beautification, if there was a beautification fine, right? You take that money, put it into fund for demolitions. Too bad. We should look at that. That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Down the road,
Down the road.
right?
Another piece.
I don't think Joe's article offers a way to pay for it. I think it's just out of the town budget.
Yeah, Mr. Mulcairn's article, it's unfortunate. It's a flawed article on
Yeah.
there, the way it was presented. And I think that may be something that's coming back before us in the future in a perfected state.
Yep. Okay.
So I'll try and move along. And then the only other two are the petitioned articles on there. So,
And those
yeah.
Numbers?
In this, I believe they are numbers
31,
31 and 32.
yes.
31?
31 and 32 as petition articles, they go automatically on to the town meeting warrant. We do not have any real input on those per se.
Right. Yeah, and these are the ones for the for the demolition stuff and,
And
for
the
the
sewer commissioners.
sewer commission. Right. Okay. Anything else?
Well, that would be all.
Any questions for Mr. Sullivan? No. Nothing. Okay, Peter.
Just as a matter of procedure, Mr. Chairman, a week and a half ago, we voted favorable action on a number of articles. Tonight, we've heard a number of additional articles that we held off favorable action votes so Mr. Sullivan could present them.
Correct.
We've also got the 2 citizens petition articles here.
Correct.
At some point, I don't know if the board's interested in doing it tonight, or do we want to revisit these in the future and go through and do favorable action?
Have you got? He's going to be. What is the, in terms of a timeline? I know Mrs. Heath is going to come back and do hers. I would assume that Joe is not coming, right?
I think he was away. He might be back.
I'm sorry.
I don't think he was available.
But
I think
it's
he's
a
back.
flawed article, right? So
Yeah, I
have
don't.
you discussed that with him?
I don't know if he'd. I had asked him to speak to see if there was some way to clean it up, but since it's a petitioned article, he would have had
It
to
has
get
to
all
go
the.
through the way it's written.
Yeah,
Have
so
you contacted him?
I did speak to him about it. I didn't ask about going from the board.
Are
It
we
might be worth
done
your
in-
time to get it out there, though. What he's looking to do, you know. But
If the board feels they have enough information, right, we can do it right now. Mrs. Winslow has the list. She doesn't have to read them all. We just heard explanations. If you want to hold, I mean, it's not an emergency. If you want to hold off,
You can do it now if you want.
we could do it at another time if there's more information coming down the pike. But
Well,
we can
nec-
do it
nec-
right now, real quick.
Next week, we're up against it with the interviews.
Next week I really don't want to overcrowd next week.
I understand that, 'cause
and
of
I
those
understand
interviews.
this is only 10, and then there's 10, and there's 10.
Yeah.
But we really need to give enough time so that we can thoroughly vet these people that want to be our town council.
Why don't we vote on these, get them out of the way?
Yeah. You want to do them right now, Kara? You want to just go down the list?
If that's what you want to do,
You don't need to.
Well,
you don't
we'll-
need to read the article. Just give us the number.
Well, the numbers have changed.
Do your best. Is there a listing?
No,
The numbers have changed since
the numbers have changed. Yes. No, I have an updated copy of the warrant. That's okay.
Went through and listed all the ones.
Yeah, but those are not correct.
Do you want to take a couple of minutes and go through and correlate them to what we have
No.
here so we can match up the prior votes? Because there's no sense voting favorable action twice on the same thing.
If you'd like to do that, I can give a quick update on 6 and 28 while you're doing that.
Yeah. Why don't we do
No,
Get it
that?
out of the way.
I'm good.
You good?
Okay.
Go ahead and
Good.
go then.
Go ahead.
I move favorable action on Article 6.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Question? All in favor? What
Aye.
is 6?
Well,
Budget.
this is the problem.
That's
This
why they
is
asked you if you wanted a few minutes to go through there. and you
well,
said
yeah,
no.
but my issue with doing this tonight is that a lot of this stuff involves money, and we don't have the final information on it.
We won't have final information anyways.
You're not going to have that until.
We're voting favorable action essentially on the preliminary numbers that he's provided us. That's as close as we're going to be able to get before town meeting, unfortunately.
Or you can vote to abstain on the favorable action if you want.
I'm just trying to point out that
You're not going to have that number.
The finance committee's gonna run into the same problem, and if the numbers are critical, they're gonna probably, they would normally abstain, just so you know.
All right. Why don't you take a minute, if you don't mind, and just let us know what the article is we're voting on. And you guys can give us that update on 6 and 28 while we're doing it. Okay?
If I miss anything, Mr. Titlebaum, please let me know. We, basically, we had the issue with Route 6 and 28 with the highway, rebuild. It's been sitting for a while back and forth, and there was a meeting with Serped and with Mass DOT. The issue was whether or not Wareham as a town really wanted to do the project or not. So we were in a little bit of jeopardy of the project being pulled. As it is, the project probably is going to go back to 2016 to 2017. The project will be cut back in scope somewhat, which should take away some of the areas that people were having the hardest time with. And the reason for the scope being cut back is because the cost of doing the roads per se is that much more expensive today than it was 3 or 4 years when they first started, and the road costs keep going up. The one good piece for the town of Wareham is that we do not have to absorb the road. They pulled that off the table. They're going to keep that as a state road. And I don't have the paperwork here. They should be giving us some paperwork shortly showing the areas they're actually going to cover. Peter, do you have a note on that?
I've made notes about the area is going to run essentially from Home Depot, the intersection there, down as far as the Red Brook currently. I think it's as far as they're looking to go. They're not looking at this time to do the straightaway between Red Brook and the other end of Onset Ave. Is my understanding that it's pretty much Onset Ave where it comes out, where it crosses, where it comes out right before
Yes.
you get into Buzzards Bay.
Yes.
The far end.
Yes.
So we're talking from the plaza down to Red Brook as a divided highway. They're looking at the portion from there east to Buzzards Bay as a pure straightaway where they don't think the traffic issues are as severe. They don't think the cars coming in and out of the roadway are as problematic. So for now, they're looking to sort of cut that out of the loop.
Well, it's not much once you get past the lights.
Yeah,
But but the project is going to go all the way to the bridge, right? Buzzards Bay.
Well, no, that's what they're telling us. They're telling us that they've cut the scope back so that it would go only as far as Red Brook.
Oh, but I thought you said, and then from that point they would just complete that to the bridge
No,
on
they-
a single lane road.
They would leave that alone because the statistics.
All the money they're spending on the bridge, and they wouldn't finish that small piece.
It's basically the statistics that they have. The major area is the problem is that one section there is where most of the fatalities have been and where all the accidents are.
They showed us
by
a map.
statistics.
They showed us a map that charts fatalities going back 10, 15 years on the roadway.
Yeah.
And you can see that the majority of the action is in the area they're looking to do, which is between the plaza
Didn't
and
we
Red
just
Brook.
have 2 last year down at that set of lights at the marina with the where not Resco's, where the marina is at the lights on Set Avenue. Guy crossing. the
Yeah, I know what
street
you're
right
talking
there,
about.
and it was a car accident.
Secco.
Yeah, Secco, right there at that corner.
He is both
But they wouldn't go as far as that.
Again, they said they were cutting back because of the costs. They only have so much in the budget,
Understood.
and because the costs, we were told $1 million a mile for road and stuff before on some things. So basically, the cost has gone up substantially, and they're looking at probably going at that much more. So they have to plan back.
Now, the other piece here, Selectman Slavin, did mention that the thinking at the District 5 level, which is the regional office in Taunton, is that they are not going to discontinue the state ownership of the road, which, frankly, for me personally, was a big concession because that was one of my huge concerns looking at this. However, it could theoretically be countermanded by their superiors, so we need to watch that and make sure that that's part of the final deal. We can't just... We're going to have to read the fine print when it comes down.
Right, because I think at one point they weren't gonna. We were gonna have to take the road, and they were offering nothing for that except for the project.
And a couple trucks, maybe, I think was the
Yeah,
deal.
well, and then I think we got to a point where we're going to get a couple of trucks out of it, right?
Yep.
And then it was kind of so-so. Well, we have to talk to our superiors. Because, Mark Gifford was here, and we talked to him about it. And, for us, we like the beautification. I like the fact that for 5 years we're going to have a beautiful road. But we just don't. I mean, you're listening to our budget,
can't
and we
afford it.
explained to them that night that, hey, we don't have trucks that can do that road. We just don't have the money to take over the road.
Yeah, I didn't want people cursing me in 2025 when we had to pay $1 million a year to upkeep the thing. So
Wow.
that was my thinking.
So I think those are good. Those are good. Good updates.
Yeah. Now the only thing that was brought out is they were a little concerned, basically that the town administration, which is ourselves, hadn't done more outreach to the community. So part of our responsibility is they will do all the paperwork as far as all the different areas where they have to do cuts, where they have to do road, takings and moving things, etc. They'll work with the merchants, but we're going to have to, on our end, start to do some meetings and public outreach to the citizens where the road is affected, not just the businesses, but people who live there, businesses, people who travel. So it's going to be our responsibility over the next year to 2 years to do this. we'll have some more detail as they come meet with us again.
One
Well,
thing
you know, they keep saying that, right? And then they'll sit here and we'll say, well, what should we do next? So what do you want us
Well,
to do?
this
What
is-
do you want us to do?
this is the first
they
time
don't
that-
say anything, and
well,
then
they
they
have-
go to a meeting and say, well, we haven't got your support.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
all I'm trying
what
to
do you
get.
want us to do?
They want us to drive the process
Yeah.
locally. They don't want to. They don't want to be top down, coming down here and saying,
Right.
"We're looking to stick this road on you guys. What do you think?" They're
So,
looking
you
for
know,
us to go and work it.
You know, in the past, we've talked to a lot of different department heads through Andrews when he was here, and so I think, you know, let's hand the ball off to our good shepherd here.
You're welcome.
And maybe we'll have a briefing with him. You guys meet with him and brief him on what you just learned.
Yep.
He's new to the project, and then he can bring in his experts from the town departments.
Yeah,
And let's
what-
get a
Mark,
group
Mark
together
Gifford
and
did attend with us, so it was
Say it
good.
again?
Mark was there with
with
us, so
Who?
that was good. Mark Gifford was there with us.
oh yeah, that's one of
So that was
one of
good.
Derek's.
That was good for him to be there. Just one more point of detail.
Were you invited? Listen, were you invited?
I was there.
Honest.
He was
Oh, you were there. Okay.
We brought him along too.
You said Mark Gifford.
Oh yeah, but Mark was there. Just
Yeah, I mean, there's a good. There he is, right there. That's
Yep. That's the man
instead
you
of
want
worried
on the,
about
on the
all these
scene.
other little things in these other departments. There's a major project we need to get done because it is going to bring some good revenue into the town.
One thing that I did manage to get out of them, right now, the plans they showed us on February 13th were to have U-turns at Home Depot, at the 99, at Main Ave, and then the last one at Red Brook. I pushed fairly hard for an additional U-turn somewhere between the 99 and Red Brook, because you're talking about a mile of roadway there that people have to go, and I think that's too far for people to travel, and it's too tough on the local businesses for people to have to go that far to bang a U-turn to go on the other side of the road. So they heard me, I think.
They said they're looking into it.
And I think if we stick together on that one, we can get that one done.
Okay. Good.
It was a good meeting.
When is the next meeting? Do you know?
I believe it's really up to us through the town administrator to sit and contact Mass DOT, District 5 and Serpent, and sit down with them and work together.
Yeah, I think Mark has a pretty good working relationship
Yes, he
with them
does.
as well. Now, there was a sign group that was getting together. Were they at the meeting with the planner? I think.
I mean, the new sign bylaw?
Right.
That's me.
Oh, that's you.
Yeah.
So you're at the meeting. too.
I partially wrote
No,
that
because
one.
there was a group that we had put together
Yeah.
a while back. Was part of that project to look at signs. Okay. Very good.
The sign bylaw should be coming at some point and scheduled for us as
All right.
well. It's basically done.
Very good. All right, let's look at. Mrs. Winslow's ready. Okie doke.
I move favorable action on Article 6, which is the budget.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. A question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
301.
I move favorable action on Article 7, the Upper Cape Regional Technical School budget.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. Question? All in favor? All opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
Aye.
2-2? Did I hear that right?
022.
022.
022.
The Water Pollution Control Facility budget will become Article 8 now that we've moved the stabilization fund onto the special. So I move favorable action on Article 8, Water Pollution Control Facility budget.
Motion made and second on the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
301.
The next one is the EMS budget, formerly Article 10, will now become Article 9. I move favorable action.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. Question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
301.
Current Article 13, which is the parking kiosks, will become Article 12. I move favorable action.
Motion made.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Aye. Abstain?
Aye.
0, 1, 3. Okay.
Existing Article 14 revolving funds will now become Article 13. I move favorable action.
Motion made.
Second.
Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
301.
Current Article number 15, which is the request for textbooks and technology, will become Article 14. I move favorable action.
Motion made.
Second.
Seconded. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
301.
Currently Article 20, which is the school transportation article, will become Article 19. I move favorable action.
Motion made.
Second.
Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained?
Aye.
301.
211. Correct? Wasn't somebody opposed?
No.
Nope.
Okay, 301. Currently Article 22, the restructuring for finance director will become Article 21. I move favorable action.
Second.
Motion made and second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained? 310.
Currently Article 23, rental inspection will become Article 22. I move favorable action.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
301.
And there's the petitioned articles, but we haven't heard from the petitioners, so
Yep.
I don't know if you want to take a vote on those tonight or wait for...
Typical practice is to wait for them to make their presentation and then.
Yeah, we can hold off on those two. Like I say, I'm not sure what's going to happen with Joe is he out of town? Is that the issue?
I think he might be back now. He was.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
I think town council.
I'm
might
certain
be
Mrs.
doing
Heath
that
will be here.
All right.
Town moderator, town council.
Okay, that takes care of that piece. Madam Moderator, if you're still here, you are here. Is there anything else that you can think of that you think we might have missed or forgotten, or you think we got it all covered? Anybody else? Derek?
No, I appreciate it.
Kara?
No, I just, I do want to again express my concerns that, we don't have a lot of this information in front of us, and a lot of our questions couldn't be answered, and some of these issues involve advice of counsel, so. On the articles.
Peter?
Nothing. I think at this point, we just need to move to close the warrant.
No? What do you think?
Just go ahead and close the warrant at this point.
All right. I can't think of anything else. Okay.
I move to close the annual Springtown meeting warrant for the town of Wareham. April 2nd, 2013 election. Designated poll locations, 8 o'clock a.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. April 22nd, 2013. General business portion, Wareham High School, Viking Drive, Wareham, Mass. 02571 at 7 o'clock p.m. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Plymouth, to either of the constables of the town of Wareham, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the legal voters of the town qualified to vote in town affairs to meet in Precinct 1, Wareham Town Hall, 54 Marion Road. Precinct 2, Ethel B. Hammond Elementary School, 13 Highland Ave, Onset. Precinct 3, Minot Forest Elementary School, 63 Minot Ave, Wareham. Precinct 4 and Precinct 5, John W. Deacon School, 760 Main Street, South Wareham. Precinct 6, Wareham Lodge of Elks, 2855 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2013, at 8 o'clock a.m. for the election of town officers designated in the official ballot to be adjourned until Monday, April 22nd, 2013 at 7 o'clock p.m. in the high school auditorium, 7 Viking Drive, Wareham, Mass., at which time the general business of the town shall be transacted, and to act on the following articles. Articles 1 through
32? 31 now.
31 inclusive. Right, 31, yes. You are hereby directed to serve this warrant by posting attested copies thereof on or before Friday, March 15th, 2013, in at least one public place in each precinct within the town, and by publishing a copy of the warrant on or before April 7th, 2013. Hereof fail not, and make sure due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk of the time and place of said meeting, given under our hands this 12th day of March in the year 2013, the Wareham Board of Selectmen, Stephen M. Holmes, Chairman, Kara A. Winslow, Clerk, Alan H. Slavin, and Peter W. Teitelbaum.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 4-0-0.
If we're done, I'll make a motion to adjourn, so Mrs.
I
Winslow.
just
If I could just have 1 moment.
Sure can. Just want to get the room.
I was going to bring this up under, I have a committee that is requesting a copy of a report that was issued to the board. What's the name of that report? It's on the water. You just gave that to us. Did you ever give us that report, by the way? I don't recall seeing it. Mr. Sullivan.
I emailed it out to the board.
Don't yell at me.
I did email it out to
It's
the
a
board.
huge report.
Was it last week?
It's a very large.
2 weeks ago, right?
It's a large
Yeah.
report to print out.
It was printed out?
No, if you print it out, it's a large
Yeah,
report.
it's a.
I didn't get it printed. It's electronic, right?
It's
Yes,
electronic, and
You never
Anyway,
read
I want your permission to forward that report to a committee. Yes? Thank you.
Yes.
Would you forward that report tomorrow?
Yes,
By
I will.
email.
by email.
Electronic copy only.
And then if you can save those to your
We are
hard
gonna print
drives
out all
and,
those pages, just
No, I'm not.
send an email.
but if you can save that to your hard drive and delete it to clean up some room in our system, because that's taking up a lot of room, all the copies.
Gotcha.
I'll delete mine.
Okay, now I can entertain your motion unless Mr. Titlebaum.
I just have one quick liaison report, and it's a request as well. The Cable Advisory Committee, chaired by our mutual friend, Mr. Ciccatelli, would like to come before us with their survey that they've prepared for the Wareham community regarding whether they're happy with their cable TV service provided by Verizon and Comcast. Obviously, the ninth.
I think I've asked for that on the 26th, Peter.
On the 26th?
I think so.
Okay, fair enough. I know Mr. White's over there, and I didn't want him to tackle me as I tried to leave in case I didn't get that one out there.
I think I had asked Janet or Shirley, because you had sent me an email the other day on
Yeah.
that, right?
Okay, thank you
On
then.
the 26th.
Works for me, thanks.
WCTV is going to put off next. WCTV, we're going to put off another week, not next week.
The it's two different issues. The WCTV contract. Mrs. Ishishara
Yeah.
has been back in touch with the town. We were going to do it next Tuesday. We're going to do it the following Tuesday.
Okay.
I had to clear some of the
It's
stuff
fine.
off of that next week, or we would
Bef-
really be in trouble.
Before I make my motion again, I just want to make a note here. The second paragraph of our town administrator's report on the latest financial budget version is basically, I just want to read this in so people understand we're going to have to help here. Even after those deductions, my best estimate is that we will have a large deficit of close to $1 million. The low-end estimate is $500,000. That means we are faced with further funding cuts. I am requesting the board provide its funding priorities for the 2014 budget. This will help make sure the board's strategic vision is represented in the budget. So I just want to bring that out. That's in either next week or the week after, we're going to have to come up with some policies and guidance for the town administrator.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would ask Derek to try to make that a little efficient. I mean, it's a big request. If you could just put together a simple, hey, here's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
And then the five of us here can go through it and say, okay, for example, we're going to cut all I would recommend to the board to save $10,000. We're going to cut all the clocks in town, right? And have that list.
Okay.
And then the five of us can sit down, we'll go through that list and say, okay, listen, Alan thinks the clocks are important. I think, those tables are important, right? And then let's just try to come to some consensus. But you have to be an important part of that. And there may be some things like we talked about tonight that you hadn't thought about. And I think a good discussion like that, we can do. I have no issue doing that, some of that next week at all, Alan.
Okay.
That's important, really important.
It is now.
It's not like we have nothing. It's not like we have no minutes next week. It's just that I took a lot of that stuff off in respect to bringing somebody in for an important position, which is town council. And I would expect that you would be prepared to ask questions as well as part of that, because really you're the one who deals with that person on a daily basis. So I don't want to throw that at you at the last minute.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Have a great night, and thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. You were very helpful this evening. And Mr. Barros, as always, for hanging right in there till 10:30. Good night.